Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
people around the world have been asking the United States of America to provide the M3 Bradley to the Ukrainian armed forces. Of course, America, being the land of the free and the home of the brave, we have listened, and the M3 Bradley is now in Ukraine.
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 317 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine here on the very first day of a brand new week of the war. And as y'all can see, I hope y'all like that little thing that I put together for the beginning of the news. The Bradleys are in. They're not on their way to Ukraine. They are crossing the border right now into Ukraine. They are there at this very moment. So real quick, I'm going to guide y'all through the story of the Bradley and how it went from kind of being on the table today to all the way being in Ukraine right now. But before we get to that, of course, I have to make sure to mention that we are still running the limited edition Igor merch. And so, if you would like to give a good shout of Igor, because this is the perfect time to shout it out considering the Bradley just arrived. I'm sure that man who screamed Igor is currently, his head is exploded from yelling Igor so loud because the Bradley's finally there. And of course, it supports our channel, and it's pretty neat. But anyways, we're going to be moving on over all the way, man, you believe it or not, to a state just north of us called Kentucky. Because the President of the United States was here a little while ago, and the press asked him at that moment, and this is actually today, if Bradleys would be on the table. And he said yes, and then he just walked away. And so it seemed as though, it was like, oh, neat, it looks like these are going to be in the conversation, kind of like we were talking about last night. Maybe we'll send them eventually. Then, in a meeting with Schultz, then he said that the Bradleys are on the way, literally just hours later. And here's the little link to that. You can see it there. It's on Vicegrad 24. And he was talking to Schultz. He said they're on the way. Then we go over to Poland. And just a little while ago, just about 3 hours ago, which means that they have made it to the border and are now crossing at this very moment, we saw Bradleys on the rail cars of trains being transported through Poland on their way to Ukraine. And I gotta mute that because while we had some cool music, that was copyright free. And there they are. There's two of them. And there's a lot more of them. So it is not any myth at all that these Bradleys are on their way to Ukraine, or they're going to be provided to the Ukrainians. We've already made it public that they will be, and we already transported the Bradleys there, as you can see in this video. We've sent 50 of them total. So this is only a small fraction of it. There's more on other trains being sent elsewhere, but they're finally there. This is one step away from sending the Ukrainians M1 Abrams tanks, and I can't wait to see these things being used. And of course, y'all know why I want to see them used. It's because the M3 Bradley And some people call it the M2 Bradley. That's a little bit of a weird thing. The M2 and the M3 Bradley are very similar to each other, so it's really just more of like, what do you call it? I call it the M3, because as far as I recall, the M2 Bradleys, or those variants, were either upgraded into M3s or they were phased out. It was something similar because it's now outdated. But anyways, the M3 Bradley is a very competent fighting vehicle. If we take a look at its armament, not only can it carry a decent amount of infantry, and we'll go down here real quick. Let's see here. Main armament, secondary, let's see here. The crew, and you can carry a crew of 3, and then an additional 2 scouts. So it's not that bad for a recon vehicle. This is actually quite good. Another thing, also, what? For some reason, that looks like the turret was inside the hull, like it had tilted up. Anyways, we're going to move on from that. That was just weird. It also has a 25mm M242 Bushmaster gun. These things are incredibly good, especially against infantry, and so it's a good, I guess you could say, infantry support vehicle alone. And not only that, the best thing about the Bradley is the tow launcher on the left side of the turret. This thing carries 2 tows at a time, and there's more tows being carried inside of the Bradley itself, and once the 2 tows are fired from the launcher, they have to go outside the vehicle and reload those tows, but it carries 2 of them ready to fire. They're wire-guided missiles, and once they're fired, unless the wire's cut, nothing's going to stop them, and they can punch through just about anything, especially the TOW 2Bs, which explode above the target like a javelin, and downwards into the roof, which really no tank has a defense against. So by and large, we know that for certain, if a Bradley sees 2 Russian tanks in the distance, and also several Russian infantry platoons at the same time, the Bradley could knock out those 2 Russian tanks within minutes, and then also engage the infantry platoons and suppress them, and then withdraw and report the positions of the enemy to the Ukrainian forces, so that way they can call in artillery on the area and bombard them. So a Bradley is a very competent vehicle, more competent than anything we've seen sent so far in terms of actual frontline fighting vehicles. This beats the MRAPs, it beats the Kirpies, it beats the Bushmasters, it beats just about anything. It beats the AMX-10 RC, and also another vehicle that was being sent today as well. The Germans actually announced that they will also be sending the Marders. I forgot. I actually skipped over that here in the US news. The Bradleys and the Marders are on the way. And so I'm going to show y'all this one real quick, because some people say that the Marder is a little less capable, and it is, but it is still fairly decent. You can see right here, here's a Marder 1. I believe the most advanced version of the Marder is the Marder 1A3 or the Marder 1A4. Correct me if I'm wrong, or tell me which one it is. And we can see that it has a 20mm gun, if I'm correct. Let me make sure on that one. It is a 20mm Rheinmetall Mark 20 RH202, so I am correct. And it also has a Milan ATGM. Only one, though. It doesn't have a dual launcher like the Bradley does. It only has the singular Milan. So once it fires, a crew member has to get outside of the turret and reload it. So in terms of infantry support, a Marder could do a fairly decent job. It's not going to be doing as well as a Bradley, but it is still incredibly competent. And this one is more so fitted into the infantry fighting vehicle role instead of an armored recon vehicle or a light tank like the Bradley someone is, because the Marder can actually carry 3 crew members and an additional 6 infantry, unlike the Bradleys 2, which those 2 are just scouts. So it's actually much more fitted into the infantry fighting vehicle armored personnel carrier role than the Bradley is, and we'll probably see the Marder 1s get integrated into Ukrainian infantry units, and the Bradleys will more so be, I guess, more so attached to armored units and used as scouts for the armor, or scouts really for the front line in general, reporting to infantry units, armor units, and the like. By and large, really, it's just going to be a recon vehicle. This thing will actually carry troops as well, and then support them most likely. So it's very cool to hear. And on top of the AMX-10 RC being sent, the Ukrainians are getting, Matthew, like every single armored personnel carrier ever used in the West right now. Well, light tank, I guess you could say. Light tank / armored personnel carrier used in the West right now. The only thing they're missing are the warriors from the United Kingdom. If they got those, I think they would have like the quadruplets of the Western military's light tank / armored personnel carrier vehicles. But still, this is something to see and truly game-changing for units on the ground. Because you've got to remember, this gun right here, although it's just a 20mm gun, will punch through the front armor of a BMP-2 or a BMP-3 like it was butter. Even from a long distance away, this thing will shred a BMP-2 or a BMP-3 like it was nothing. And with the Milan ATG...
Are there currently any plans to send Britain's armored vehicles to Ukraine?
I haven't heard of any plans, and I don't think they will, because Warriors, if I'm correct... let me put in Warrior IFV. I believe the Warriors may be a little bit more limited in their numbers than most vehicles. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. There's actually about 2,000 of these things, so it's not at all in short supply. And I'm also... Just to give a shout out to the Brits, because sadly y'all aren't getting a shout out for sending anything right now today. I'm sure it's on the way. I'm sure the British will announce that there are Bradleys that will be sent, well, not Bradley, Warriors that will be sent on their way into Ukraine. But here is, I guess you could say, kind of the normal FV-510 Warrior that the British use. It's a really cool little infantry fighting vehicle. I believe it has a 30mm gun, and it does. It has a 30mm Rardin cannon. And it also, in some instances, can have a rooftop-mounted Milan ATGM on it, a Milan 1 or a Milan 2. So it's fairly competent as well.
Yeah, I like the design of this one. It's like aggressive like a tank. But also, real quick, while I see it in the live chat, I see several people saying the Bradley can actually carry up to 6 passengers.
I believe, let me go check that real quick. M2 Bradley. Because I heard before that it could carry 6 passengers. And it appears that it's the M2 Bradley that carries 6, well, once again, according to Wikipedia, so it may be incorrect, but let me check this again. So the M3 Bradley, according to Wikipedia, can only carry an additional 2 passengers, which are scouts. The M2 Bradley can carry 6 passengers, or 7 in the M2A2. So it seems as though that may be the difference in between the M3 Bradley and the M2 Bradley, is that the M3 Bradley more so was going into a light tank role and really removing a lot of the, I guess you say, crew or infantry compartments in the rear for more ammunition storage, while the M2 Bradley made sure to keep that and utilize itself more so in a role as a light tank. Then again, I think that's wrong, because all Bradleys, from what I know, can carry 6 or 7, so this may just be inaccurate. We'll go with 6 or 7. So still, it actually, with that in mind, it can be a infantry fighting vehicle, much like the Marder, even a little bit better. And we haven't heard about the Warrior yet, but I'm sure we'll hear about that soon. Also, I do think this is like one of the coolest looking infantry fighting vehicles in the world. It looks, like Matthew said, it does look pretty mean, and it's also a pretty decent vehicle as well. It's just that it's a lot like the Marder in the way that the Marder has the single Milan. The Warrior only can carry a single Milan as well, and sometimes there's a question of whether they'll actually be equipped on it or not. So, still, moving back to the Bradley, this is next level, and this is truly game-changing right here for what the Ukrainians will be fighting like in this war, considering that now a normal infantry unit will have a lot more extra firepower if these are introduced into it, and a lot more support for the infantry, I guess you could say, on the ground. So with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news about the Bradleys and all of everything that's been said today, and I'm really excited to see that they'll eventually make it there. And meanwhile, in Germany, not only did they say they're sending the Marders, but they're sending Hydra missiles. Now, a lot of y'all may know about Hydra from Captain America, you know, because that was the Red Skull guy and all that stuff. But we're not talking about that Hydra, because honestly, that was kind of lame, a little dookie, to be honest with y'all. We're talking about the Hydra missiles. So let me pull up the Hydra, actually the rockets, sorry, Hydra rockets. And these things are pretty neat. They are pretty much just unguided rockets, and we're about to change that in a second. That's actually not true for the ones we're talking about. But they're largely unguided rockets that have been around in service for the longest time. Much like the song Billy Joel sang about the longest time, think about that with these rockets. However, these that the Germans are sending are pretty neat. They're laser guided, so they actually have a little bit of guidance inside of each rocket where the helicopter can lock onto a target, fire these things, and as long as they have the propellant, they will guide themselves directly onto the target and hit it directly. So a massive upgrade from the normal unguided rockets that the Ukrainians have been using up to this point, and we may see that they may be able to score some more accurate hits, or at least a smaller area of dispersion with the guided Hydra rockets as opposed to the Soviet-era rockets that they've been using on a lot of their Mi-8s and Mi-24s up till this point. Not only that, I got even more interesting news for y'all, and this was the big one today. Well, this was supposed to be the big one. Putin has called for a ceasefire. Now, this is probably the craziest thing that I've ever heard so far, and y'all will hear the excuse, and I'll explain what the real intent behind it is. Putin says that he wants a 36-hour ceasefire, not peacefire, starting tomorrow for 36 hours in length. So it's going to be, carrying on over into January 7th, pretty much until midnight over there. So that way people in the area of the front lines can celebrate the Russian Orthodox Christmas. Now, the real reason behind this request of a ceasefire is for that 36 hours to be used to try and reorganize their defenses and try and sit there and have a little bit of breathing room where everything isn't being destroyed, so that way they can try and build it up to survive again another few weeks or so.
They're going to need a lot more than 36 hours to fix their situation.
And, well, 36 hours is the best they could probably try and even ask for realistically, and they went for it, and it was immediately shot down. Of course, Zelenskyy and the Ukrainian government said, hell no, that's stupid. We're going to be giving y'all time to rebuild everything, and also, it seems as though this is some kind of a ploy or a ruse to try and conduct something because we don't trust y'all. Y'all are nothing but liars, and they're not really wrong. So, very interesting on that note. Now, this is something to me, Matthew, that is very, very interesting, because some people will say, Putin is just trying to keep the Christmas truce in 1914 alive. People who say that don't understand that the Christmas truce of 1914 was completely spontaneous and was not supposed to happen, and it was not a war-wide ordeal. It wasn't like the British government, the French government, the German government got together and went, you know what, let's have peace and goodwill for man just for this 1 year of the war. No, it was more of a spontaneous thing that happened in between only British and only German soldiers in small areas of the front line. And then the next day, the British government and the German government were demanding that these soldiers resume normal operations and continue fighting, or they were going to start instilling some kind of discipline onto these units, and then they later on dispersed them, switched around the units on the front line so that way they didn't know who they were fighting against, so that way the war would continue. This is not at all like the Christmas truce in 1914, because this is something that the Russian government is trying to orchestrate in and of itself. And this is something that has never happened in any war and has never been agreed on, especially during a holiday season of any time. So this appears to be some kind of a ruse or some kind of a ploy to try and pull off something, and the Ukrainians are not going to be falling for it. They're not going to accept any kind of ceasefire or a truce, because so far, even during this war, whenever temporary ceasefires were called in areas to evacuate civilians and citizens, the Russians never adhered to it. Sometimes they would actually start it. They would say, it's a unilateral ceasefire, we're not firing at anyone that leaves the city. And then all the people tried to flee Mariupol, and they started firing on the convoys filled with citizens and killed off a decent amount of them. So we know that they're not to be trusted. The Ukrainians are right in saying that. So they're not going to be accepting this ceasefire, and they're going to continue the war through those 36 hours as nothing had ever happened. We're now going to be moving on into Moscow, though, to actually talk about some interesting stuff that I saw today. And I actually saw, Matthew, that a Ukrainian media group published the cheat codes to the Russian media and how they spin the story to different people around the world about how their war is just and right. So we have 4 different categories, Matthew. We have the Russian domestic audience, the Ukrainian audience, the global south, which is, the global south, and then the west. So let's go through these and let's see what's accurate about them, because I read it and a lot's accurate. So to their domestic audience, they say the Ukrainian nation does not exist. Haven't we heard that a lot from Russian propaganda channels talking to a Russian audience?
Indeed.
Ukraine was granted existence by Russia. That's another big one. Sovereign Ukraine is a project of anti-Russia or anti-Russian interests. And then to the Ukrainian audience, Russians and Ukrainians are brotherly nations. And we hear that one a lot. They're always saying they're just two brothers, the brothers of the Rus or whatever. Ukraine is part of the Russian civilization, which they also say a decent amount. Ukraine can only be successful together with Russia. And I think that's honestly the funniest one, because it's like, who the hell is successful when teamed up with the Russians? And then to the West, this one's going to apply directly to you and me, Matthew, and you'll probably see some very interesting similarities with sometimes what pro-Russian people say over here. Russia is a global power with a right to its own sphere of influence, and Ukraine belongs there. Isn't that what we went over right last night during the live chat segment at the very end of the stream, when we looked at those 2 idiots that, were former colonels and everything, and they were talking about Russia has a right to take Ukraine. It's part of their sphere of influence. They literally said that. And that is that's actually a part of their propaganda over here. Ukraine, as a part of the West, poses an existential threat to Russia. That is another thing that we hear a lot, and it's true in a way. And that's why we're trying to make sure that Ukraine becomes part of the West, because Russia is a rival, and we're never wanting rivals being in advantageous positions. Then the West is using NATO to encircle Russia. Now that one's not really true, because the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, of course, pertains to the North Atlantic. So, and also there are parameters within the NATO charter saying who can be a member of NATO, and Turkey is as far over as one can get. You can't be in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization as Syria or Iraq or Iran or Georgia or Azerbaijan or Turkmenistan or Kazakhstan or Mongolia or China or North Korea or Japan or South Korea or Kyrgyzstan or Uzbekistan or this one and that one. And that one. You can't be a member of any of the countries, any of the alliance, unless if you're from the North Atlantic. And all of the countries that are NATO members are a part of the North Atlantic. So the idea of, quote-unquote, boxing in the Russians, unless if they view their country as only pertaining to Europe and the rest of Asia just doesn't exist, that's not true at all. And anyways, it's kind of stupid that they'll sit there and say, oh, they're trying to box us in, when these nations have a choice as to whether they want to join NATO or not. Ukraine has a choice whether they want to join NATO. Finland and Sweden had an option of joining NATO or not, just like Switzerland does. And it appears that because of the Russians' idiocy and their outright aggression, a lot of people are choosing to use the option of joining NATO to protect themselves from insane idiots inside of the Russian Federation. So it seems as though it's not really NATO trying to box them in. I would say it's more so everyone's scared as hell of them, and so they're all joining an alliance so that way they can stay safe together. That seems to more so make sense. And also, finally, the Global South. Russia is the leader of the global anti-imperialist and anti-colonial front. Wow.
Well, wait a minute, anti-colonial, but they're trying to basically colonize Ukraine.
Yeah, an anti-imperialist, they're trying to reinvigorate the Russian Empire, literally. The imagery and everything is Russian imperial age. And they're trying to say, we're anti-imperialist. Bull. That one doesn't even make any sense. It doesn't even stand up. The West is using the Ukraine war to reclaim global domination. But if the Russians were winning the Ukraine war, then how's the West using that to their advantage? I thought the Russians were doing this for their own advantage. That doesn't even make any sense. And then finally, Ukraine is part of the Russian legitimate sphere of influence. And who defines what's legitimate? If your country hardly even has an economy anymore, an economy that's around $1.5 trillion, how in the hell can you say that there is a sphere of influence at all? You don't even have enough money to take care of your own country, much less to give out money to other people so that way they're a part of your sphere of influence. I mean, what the heck?
They're basically saying we should take over Ukraine, option 1 because we should, number 2 because we should, and number 3 because we should. That's basically rewording the same thing over 3 times.
Yeah, and also another thing, if you look at the little colons, the colons or the period marks down below, just to go over the West, since we are in the West and a lot of y'all are probably watching from the West, let's read some of these small points that they're making about Ukraine. And I'm sure we've heard of this a lot from certain people, from certain groups that show up in this live chat every once in a while, and then Matthew gives them the axe. So the West attacks Russia because of Russophobia. Who in the world hated Russia before this war? You know, that's what I'm thinking, because honestly, I was rather indifferent to the Russians up till the war began. Like, you know, the whole Donbass thing is like, oh, that sucks, they'll get that back eventually, hopefully. And then when this war started, it's like, well, y'all are just a bunch of jerks, and especially when they started doing everything so far during this war, it's like, well, that's just sickening. Ukraine has an immense Nazi problem. Why in the world is that worded, Matthew, like it's a rat infestation? The house has an immense roach problem. But anyways, we've heard this one a decent amount. Ukraine's full of Nazis. And then for some reason they elected a guy who's Jewish, which would be completely against being a Nazi to elect a Jew. And then also Ukraine is very corrupt, cannot be part of the West. You see, that's an interesting one, man, because when you have it worded like that, it's almost like the Russians are trying to say, Ukraine is so corrupt that they have to be with us because we're the only ones that are more corrupt than them, so they have to stay in our little group.
Yeah, that sounds like some really solid reasoning, right?
Yeah, and then they say sanctions are very damaging, of course, you know, to the West, because for some reason we rely on Russian money, although there isn't any money over there to keep our world running. So, you know, it's interesting to see that they actually put out some very interesting little cheat codes on what the Russian media says, and it's very accurate. So if y'all want to take a look at this and read it a little bit more and read it in depth, make sure to go click on the link in the description below to this map, and you can click on this link and read this entire thing for yourself, because this is exactly their talking points. With that, we're now moving on into the next bit of news from Moscow, because we've been getting a lot today. And starting off, we saw some actors that followed Putin. Real actors. Now, a lot of people always go, oh, Putin mingles with the people. He's of the people, by the people, for the people, eagle. You know, Matthew knows what I'm talking about. Epic rap LZ. Anyways, someone was very keen, Matthew, started to notice very familiar faces from picture to picture, from time to time, wherever he's going and whatever he's doing. There's the same people here, and he actually had them labeled 1 through 4. So you can see number 1 over here, Mr. Mustache Man. Number 2, blonde-haired woman. Number 3, slightly bald guy. It looks like his hair is graying, but it's more so darker at the top. And then number 4, who has a pretty distinct-looking face. And so you can see that from picture to picture, these same 4 people just keep popping up everywhere, and these are supposedly totally different places. This is a Ukrainian house, well, not a Ukrainian, this is a Russian house with a Russian family in it. This is a little mass service in a totally different city. I believe this is actually in Moscow. Now now they're out fishing somewhere or building a bridge. You know, they're in some kind of like construction or safety vest uniforms, and then finally they're drinking tea in some wilderness, and the same 4 people just kept popping up in every single picture.
Probably FSB agents.
Probably so, and you know, I wouldn't even go that far. I would say they're most likely just paid actors, so that way the Russians can keep control of whoever's around Putin at all times, make it look like he is actually mingling with people. So they're like, we're just going to hire these 4 people, so that way we could fill up numbers and make sure that they're always around. And then they also may be FSB agents, kind of like how the Secret Service blends in with the public sometimes. These may be similar, but still very interesting to see, because they show up prevalently in most pictures, and they make up the majority of people in 3 out of 4 of these pictures. There's more of them.
I think this blonde woman played the mother in Putin's propaganda film number 3.
Oh, my little boy, he's going to grow up to be a great man. But anyways, with that, we're now moving on into the little next bit of news. The little next bit, I had to put that in specially, where we saw a propaganda freak show. Now, have y'all ever seen those movies like The Hunger Games, Matthew, where the rich people always look extremely weird compared to what you would call normal, like, people in Russia, especially considering that normal Russian people are extremely poor and usually dress in, like, you know, not that great of clothes. And then you go to this place and people got freaky hairdos and freaky clothes and all that stuff.
Yes.
This is exactly what Russia looks like, because when you watch this video here, you will see that every single quote-unquote actor that's there is just extremely, extremely odd-looking, especially compared to the average Russian, and also they look like they go completely against quote-unquote traditional Russian values that everyone's trying to always promote in Russia, because they look nothing like it.
North Korea vibes.
Yes. Where's Kim Jong-un? Let me get the graphics up, because for some reason it's not upping the graphics on its own this time, so let me try and get it up. It's going to take a second, y'all. Sorry about that. Also, by the way, I noticed that all the women in this building have on so much makeup that it's almost like they're wearing a mask. I believe Russia may be facing a makeup shortage due to everyone in this room using up all the makeup. I mean, like, it's pretty bad when you get on into the video. It's like, wow, where in the world did they get that much makeup? Like, okay, we're just gonna have to go with 540 apparently. So, wow, now it's not even. Oh, hang on, let me go and refresh the whole page and start this thing over. So let me go back forward. Here we go. Why in the world does that woman look lost? She's looking around like she's on Quaaludes.
Probably is.
It probably is. That dead look in her eyes, letting you know
They didn't
that
have to do him wrong like that.
Well, I was about to say this, Matthew. You know that, whoa, goodness. But you know that dead look in their eyes always means that they're a propaganda master of some sort, because only people who do Russian propaganda can look so dead in their eyes like this.
Yes. Oh, the things I've seen in my day.
And watch this, Matthew. You're not going to believe it. She is a propaganda master of the show.
Oh, now we know why they're so nervous, all these military people out here.
Великую страну и пожелать нашей самой лучшей в мире, великой стране счастья, покоя, чтобы это сбылось все. Новым годом!
Were they drinking vodka in champagne glasses? What is that?
Хочу представить вам. Герой России, гвардии майора, танкиста Энвера Набиева.
I'm sure that everyone in Russia is glad to know that Leonid Brezhnev's, I guess you could say unibrow, did live on through this man. Someone knows out there that Leonid Brezhnev will live on beyond Leonid Brezhnev. If y'all,
they can't afford to have this man out the front line. They're running out of tank men.
Also, by the way, man, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, keep a good look on those caterpillars crawling around above his eyes. And let me go to Leonid Brezhnev real quick, because I'm sure that many people are like, oh, Leonid lives on. There's a little bit of a doctored up picture, but that's how Leonid Brezhnev normally
Oh my
looked.
goodness.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
goodness.
let's say our old boy Leonid did have a child after all, and it must be this man here.
Старшего сержанта Мергина Донгака. Заместителя командира мотострелкового взвода.
Oh my god, someone, Matthew, roasted this man. He said, we look for things that make us go. Oh my god.
Старшего сержанта Мергина Донгака. Заместителя командира мотострелкового взвода. Артиллериста гвардии капитана Константина Иванова. Военнослужащего, уже теперь легендарного артиллерийского подразделения бригады «Кальмиус», которая действует на Донбассе уже более 8 лет и защищает эту русскую землю.
Дорогие россияне, с Новым годом!
Translation not provided. Oops.
Россияға жаңғыз темлік чонуысқа жылы байырым жетіп тұрмын. С Новым годом!
Дорогие друзья, сегодня с нами в новогоднюю ночь журналист, телеведущий Владимир Соловьев.
А вместе с ним настоящие герои, защитники Родины.
We got a discount.
It's Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, I was about to say, we got discount Pee Wee Herman and also rip-off Tom Scott here in the room. Everyone give a round of applause.
Дорогие друзья,
Oh my, it's him.
The devil! It's the devil! We go! Oh, God! Oh, that scared the hell out of me. Jeez!
I haven't been out of my hellish lair in years.
Look,
This is so unfamiliar.
Once again, Lois, Russian propaganda master, dead eyes. It's a given. If you're a Russian propaganda master, you are dead inside from all the lies you've had
This
to tell.
guy is stoned.
Yes, I have to wish everyone a happy new year and also death to everyone else.
с Новым годом, с новым счастьем. Мне бы очень хотелось, чтобы все ваши пожелания сбылись. Мне бы хотелось, чтобы в мире было спокойствие и счастье. Только вот, к сожалению, не всегда наши пожелания сбываются. Моя мысль с теми, кто сейчас не за праздничным столом, а кто сейчас там на фронте. И с их родителями, которые отпустили своих близких.
I love how he says, my thoughts are with all the wives who let their husbands go off to war, like they had an option in the whole thing with the partial mobilization. Like, I decide not to get drafted today. Okay. Like, no, that's not how it works. I think the draft officers were driving around town and picking up people off the streets, and the wives just not rioting. I thank them so much for that.
Мы воюем за право жить и быть собой.
And now look at that. They're ripping a line straight out of the American playbook about defending democracy and our way of life, but they've done it the Russian way. We're fighting for our right to live, like anyone's trying to kill them, and to be ourselves, like anyone's trying to stop that either. We were leaving them alone until this entire thing started, and now they've made it our problem.
И, конечно, сегодня большой праздник. И, конечно, он семейный праздник. И хорошо бы, чтобы ребята, которые сейчас в окопах, были не там. Но придет время, и они вернутся. И это будет праздник нашей общей победы.
А знаете ли вы, без чего невозможно
Who
приготовить?
the hell is this guy?
Yeah,
Like-
really, who is that?
Like all decked out in red. It looks like he got the freaking rug below the shower and put it on as a suit. Jeez, someone needs to get him a real suit. It's so. Oh my god. I mean, I guess, Matthew, in a way, I was just thinking maybe this was white, a white shower rug that he put on, you know, like one of those little felt things that you put on the floor. But then he brought it to Ukraine and just dabbled it around near the Makivka school, you know, when they were cleaning it up, and now the suit's all red and nice looking.
Or he took it through Chernobyl and back. One or the other. It's glowing now.
Yeah, and also another thing, Matthew, like why in the world does this guy look like a bald Elton John?
Somewhat.
Yeah, he kind of does.
Украинский борщ, французский луковый суп и немецкие сосиски. Без российского газа.
You know something? That laugh was so forced by everyone in that room that it seemed as though there were armed guards outside of you. And someone told me that this guy's a comedian. If he's telling jokes like this, man, they must be like giving him like a pension or something to be a comedian, or some kind of subsidies, because he's about as unfunny as Amy Schumer. I can't think of anyone who would be more unfunny than that. That's the lamest joke I've ever heard. Oh, wait! Oh my god, it's Anatoly Dyatlov!
3 Runkin. Not great, not terrible.
And also, this may be Lukashenko's cousin, one or the other. It's either Anatoly Dyatlov or Lukashenko's cousin, one or the other.
Raise the power.
В Европе открывают музей горячей воды и отопления. Представляете, какой ужас. Приезжает Байден на саммит НАТО в Европу, а там сидят Шольц и Макрон и в карты играют. На рубли.
There's no comedian, but I can come up with a better joke than that.
Oh my god, it's the Crackhead Man! Remember Crackhead Man? You know, he was going around acting all animated and stuff because he was just snorting those lines like no. This man right here, he was snorting those lines like no tomorrow in his facial animations. Like, oh man, yeah, this guy was a character back in the day. They've taken him off the front of the propaganda lines because he was just a little too bizarre and too crazy. So they're like, yeah, forget it.
Про Украину скажу только одно. При власти кондитера Порошенко жить украинцам было не сладко, а при власти комика Зеленского не смешно.
Man, these jokes are so forced and the laughing and applause is so fake. It's cringe. It's just cringe. Man.
Одним словом, если ты поел, помылся, дома у тебя тепло, значит, русским ты родился. Со страною повезло.
What the hell is he talking about? People don't even have washing machines in this country.
Did he just say that if you don't have like a warm house and a shower, you're not Russian?
No, he says if you've eaten and taken a bath and taking a shower, then you're definitely Russian. Like, it's like, what the hell, man? Then what is everyone stealing the toilets, the laundry machines, the washing machines, the computers, and everything else for? If you've eaten. It's like Russians aren't even eating on the front lines. There's no way to transport them food.
Дома у тебя тепло, значит, русским ты родился. Со страною повезло.
I don't know who the hell this guy is. Rip-off Vin Diesel. Actually, since he's Russian, he'd be Vlad Petrol. Sorry.
This lady on the right has a tough job.
Yes. Look how no one's really smiling in this room. They're all just clapping because they have to.
Дорогие наши защитники, вся Россия с вами! Мы пьем за то, чтобы в новом году вы вернулись домой целыми
Unharmed. That's a little bit too much of a wish.
невредимыми, а главное, славными победителями. С Новым годом, Россия!
Is this Joker reading off a teleprompter?
I think so.
What a comedian.
За нас, за вас и за Донбасс.
Yay!
She only got a few words.
которые сейчас защищают нас на передовой. И напомнить им, что смерти нет.
Death does not exist, guys, unless the bomblet falls right on your head. Then it might, but beyond that, death is completely fictional, everyone. It doesn't happen to anyone. Especially that very pale-looking guy that we passed over right after this guy. Right here, death does not exist. Don't believe in it, man. You're totally fine. You're just about as white as bleach, but that's okay. So we're gonna get... Why don't everyone look like they were, like, completely taken back by this?
Somebody asked Putin, how fake do you want us to be? He said, yes.
Very. Holy moly!
Oh my goodness.
Can't even find my mouse. There we go. And now the pain is over. I'm sorry that y'all all had to endure brain rot for 6 minutes and 40 seconds, but I had to show y'all what was going on in Russia because it's terrible. So with that, we're now moving out of Russia, and we're going to be going to Prigozhin, because you know what's interesting is that they called Poroshenko and that little actor thing a confectioner. And what's interesting is that Prigozhin, before the whole Donbass ordeal in this war, was known as Putin's chef, because he was actually the guy who owned the restaurants that Putin always went to eat at. So it's kind of interesting to me that this guy who was pretty much just a glorified fry cook before this entire ordeal is now the guy who founded and runs the Wagner unit. You know, it's kind of a little weird. And also, I guess you could say, man, that he is carrying over being a chef, because he's getting these guys fried up on the front lines like no tomorrow, and I guess he's hired the Ukrainians because they must be the fry cooks. Anyways, here's what he said.
I think he's a bad chef, though, because they're getting burnt crispy.
It's raw! But anyways, let's get to the video.
Ну что, парни, немножко осталось, а? Отработали контракт свой, с честью отработали, с достоинством, одни из первых. Первые, да, первые. Отработали так, как мало кто работает. Другие планы. Завтра вернуться, доделать. Это уже не работа, это жизнь. Мы считаем, да, конечно, вернемся. Я историю рассказывал, которую про парня, 52 года, 30-ка была отсижена, по-моему, погиб героически там.
Ah, yes, heroically. Everyone always wants to die heroically. No one ever wants to live a nice, good, long life. It's always just good to die young, you know. That ought to be the goal.
Опорный пункт под Угледарской ТЭЦ брали, да?
Ему тыл закрыли, ему некуда было уходить, он просто подорвал себя. F1 взорвал. Насколько я знаю, человек...
Wait a minute, they're recounting a story like this is heroic or something. They're admitting a tactical defeat in a small area of the line. The Ukrainians had encircled this guy, and so he blew himself up with a grenade and pretty much just committed suicide. And they're like, oh, well done, man. And as far as I know, 4 people died with him. So like, that's not really a win, you know? It's not, you know? I don't know how in the hell they're trying to make it out to be that way.
Это призвание есть. Это генетика. Это то, что у тебя есть вот в организме. Сочетание гормонов, мозговых извилин и всего остального. Идти вперед, не бояться врага, смотреть ему в глаза и не отводить взор. Поэтому те, кто взор отводит, может быть, они прекрасные компьютерщики или прекрасные художники или прекрасные врачи.
No, they were actually prisoners trying to get out of prison, actually.
Они воинами родились, они увидели о том, что они воины. И поэтому сегодня война, они должны во время войны свой дом защищать. Но лишились они, и поэтому общество должно относиться к ним с глубочайшим уважением.
And so now we're back onto a clip that we've seen actually a little while ago. But there was a little bit that was added in here that we didn't really touch on before.
Причем часть из них сидели в лагере, у них по 2 дня срока оставалось. Им просто родину хотелось защищать. Поэтому надо понимать о том, что они абсолютно полноценные члены общества. Много не бухай, наркотики не употребляй, баб не насилуй.
You know, this is the part that we didn't see last time. This is rounding out the clip of our little boy Prigozhin, and it appears that he is giving them a little bit of a list of things that they were doing in Ukraine that they can no longer do here. Like, don't drink alcohol, don't consume drugs, and don't violate women. Very interesting. I thought he just got done saying that these were upstanding members of society, a real integral part of Russia's frame and structure. And now he's having to give them a list like, you know, don't commit atrocities against other people, okay? And don't drink to death, and don't do drugs, all right? All right. You can't tell me that this guy is seriously going to say there's no one in Russia bats an eye. They're just like, yeah, the spoils of war, violating women in foreign countries. That's always what we're rooting for our soldiers to do over there. That's just sick.
And this guy probably just came out of prison himself.
Yeah, probably.
Не бедокурим. Милиция к вам должна относиться с уважением.
So that's the end of that video, but I had to show you all that because that right there, if that isn't a on-the-nose admission of what they're doing in Ukraine, I don't know what would be. That's about as straightforward as it's ever gotten with someone in Russia just saying straight up, yeah, that's what we're doing, and they're committing atrocities on a daily basis over there against folks. So with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip, and we're now going to be moving on to a bit of good news. A little bit further out in the area of Vladimir, because a shaman, and of course, as y'all know, shaman is like a folk religion person in Russia, usually from the Far East in Russia's Siberian area. He actually had some predictions for what 2023 will look like. And I thought this was great news for us because everything he said was exactly what we wanted to hear. And so let me show you all this video, and I'm sure you're really going to enjoy what this man has to throw in.
Соединенные Штаты Америки, конечно же, жаль их народ, но так исторически складывается, что Америка...
So historically, America will be divided into several parts. When in the hell in history beyond the U.S. Civil War is America just split into pieces? Trying to get an answer, man. How many times did that happen beyond the Civil War?
Only that once.
Yeah, only the once. What the hell is he talking about historically? Has the guy never read a book?
В ближайшее время может разделиться на несколько частей и объявить о суверенитете несколько штатов. И скорее всего...
Stop this video for just a second. What is this religion this guy is representing?
It's some kind of folk religion from the middle of nowhere in Russia.
So they're choosing to promote this on their TV?
Apparently so.
Why is there like a Satanist like hat over there in the corner? There's like some kind of like satanic sounding music in the background, and this dude looks shady as hell.
Well, I mean, you know, Matthew, what the hell are you accusing the Holy Russians of being Satanists? Well, come on, man. They could.
I mean, this guy's a prime candidate for something like that.
Listen, man, the Russians have assured me that they are the holy ones, and they're fighting a holy war of Christianity against the Satanists. All right, this guy couldn't definitely be evil. I mean, look at him. He looks like of course, according to a certain news anchor out there on American TV who said this about another guy, he looks like a very upstanding, honest man. And of course, I'm being sarcastic about all this, but you're kind of right, man. This all is looking a little sketch. But what the hell is he talking about? California will return to the Russian Federation. Has anyone been to California lately and seen how anti-Russian the normal person is? Why the hell would they just break away from the United States and be like, ah, yes, I would love to be a part of a failing country now. That would be the most ideal situation.
Аляска и Калифорния вернется в Российскую Федерацию.
Hell no. Hell no.
Oh my God. What is this supposed to be?
Украина, бедная многострадальная страна, государство, наша соседка, в русский мир входит с тяжелыми последствиями, но я считаю, что будет мир, мир будет очень скоро, и нужно немножко потерпеть и набраться силы духа.
Oh no, here he goes again.
В нашей Российской Федерации на сегодняшний момент идет рост, процветание, и весь мир будет смотреть, и Россия наша является локомотивом поднятия, развития русской цивилизации и спасения всего мира. В России в 2023 году не планируется никаких великих потрясений, потому что наша страна прошла точку бифуркации, и на сегодня мы набираем обороты. Наши современные дети на сегодняшний день рождаются в этих тяжелых условиях. Но, как говорили философы, тяжелые времена дают сильных людей, хорошие времена дают слабых людей. Сейчас пришло тяжелых времен, у нас рождаются сильные дети, которые в будущее сохранят нашу страну, наше государство.
Come on, we gotta get a little drum. Dang it, he didn't throw in the stupid drum spinning thing again. But still, I like his predictions. I think they're completely accurate. I'm just kidding. They're stupid. They're completely off base. Why the hell would California join the Russians? That makes no sense. Like, this guy is
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
You know, there's I always knew there was like some really like strange Russians like out in the rural areas, but Russia really has a severe like problem with like Satanists running around, and they talk about Ukraine supposedly having Nazis. It's like they have straight up like Satanists in the woods in Russia.
I mean, like, that is pretty bizarre looking, and, you know, some people can say, oh, you know, it's a folk religion. I've never really seen a folk religion like that. You know, like, that just looks weird. It looks pretty wrong to me. And that's what I work off. Does it look normal? No, it does not. That looks pretty weird. And also, some people were saying, you know, it's Mongol throat singing. Yeah, but usually there's like some kind of a lyric or a song to it. That was just people in the background going through the whole thing. That's not really throat singing. Throat singing is an actual song. That was not a song. That was just a tone. But anyways, we're going to be moving on from all the news that we've gotten from there and on into St. Petersburg, because there is truly something to be happy about today. The tractor factory caught on fire. The MTZ is on fire in St. Petersburg and burning to the ground, apparently. It looks like there wasn't even firefighters in the area. And now the firefighters are here, and look how slow they're moving, Matthew. These guys act like they've never done a day of firefighting in their lives. Like, here in the United States, someone would have already been rolling out the hose, finding the connection. Someone would already be going into the building and trying to search out if there's any people there, or standing outside and trying to see where they should start spraying the hoses once they're hooked up. These guys are out here like, oh, well, you know, billions of rubles are burning down right there, which is about equivalent to $50. We ought to make sure to stop it or something. But still, goofiness to the max, and it's good to know that the Russian economy will be suffering a little bit more thanks to the lack of tractors. Or, you know, anything else that they were making. And so with that, we're finally going to be moving on from Russia, because, you know, it's just full of stupidity. And we're now going to be moving on down to Belarus, because before we get to the location unknowns, there's one last funny thing I want to show y'all. Of course, I would be amiss to say that there isn't any Ukrainian and Belarusian forces that are looking each other down day by day, because the border guards do exist. And it appears that the Ukrainian border guards have been poking a little bit of fun at the Belarusians, and they actually caught a little bit of it on film. And I thought it was I thought it was really funny. So let me show you all this real quick. Also, the presentation is being given by Mr. Lunchtime's distant relative, Mr. Dinner Time.
Встречаются отдельные случаи провокаций с украинской стороны. Последний случай в пункте упрощенного пропуска под Добрянка, когда военнослужащими сопредельного государства наводилось оружие в сторону пограничных нарядов, оскорбительные жесты, угрожающие в сторону.
Oh, look at that Ukrainian guy is just straight up trolling him. He sat there and looked at the camera, threw out a Forrest Gump wave, and then did a throat slit thing like, look at you.
Оскорбительные жесты,
He's like, hey, your throat shit.
Пограничников.
Oh, man.
That really got the Russians all worked up.
Oh,
they made bad gestures toward us.
You know, the Russians are so strong and mighty that someone doing a hand gesture will freak them out. That's good to know. I think
that's how like tormented they are by the Ukrainians at this point. They're getting whooped by them so badly. Even the slightest gesture sends them over the edge.
Man, the Belarusians are sitting there like on SpongeBob, you know, with Patrick with the little cop radio, and they were doing like the police thing. What are they doing over there? And Belarus says he's just standing there menacingly. Oh my god. I love it though. I like this guy. I wish we had his name so that we could get commended for some kind of medal for that, because trolling a foreign country on that kind of level where they actually make a news report on it is something else. I really like it. So with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip and on into our location unknowns because we've got some stuff to cover today in the location unknowns. Not a lot of it. It's a small amount, but still quite interesting, especially the first phone call that we'll be going over here. But before we get to that, of course, we have to go over the polls because one of them has been put up for a little bit of a while. It's been about 10 minutes and gotten 1,400 votes. And the people have spoken. It's almost a majority out of the 4 options. One of them has gotten the majority of the vote, nearly 70% of it. So let's hear out what the question was and why almost everyone, 67%, voted for a certain answer.
All right, so we have 3 polls to go over, and this first one, which is the one currently up, says, why would Putin want to propose a ceasefire at this stage of the conflict? 67% said it gives him a chance to regroup, 3% said he cares about his troops, wink wink, 27% said he will use it as propaganda, and 4% said unsure and undecided or none of the above. So on this one, I've got to say, I was talking to one of our Discord members earlier by the name of Reflex. He thought it would be used as propaganda, and I would have to typically agree with that. But at the same time, I'm going to have to go with it gives him a chance to regroup because his forces are hurting so bad. Like we were discussing yesterday, he could either resort to extremes or he could simply send in more troops and fully mobilize and hope that that will eventually overrun the Ukrainians. He's choosing to try to bluff his way into a ceasefire, which is something I did not see coming. But I don't think it's going to work the way he wants it to work. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm going to say that it's actually a combination of all 3. I know that isn't an option on the poll, so I'm kind of cheating here, but I would say it's a combination of all 3 because it gives them a chance to regroup if the Ukrainians accepted this 36-hour ceasefire. Hypothetically, there would be no artillery shells landing on Russian forces behind the lines for the next 36 hours, and they could try and use that time the best they can to regroup. So it's a BS idea that's really for the holidays. It's also going to be used as propaganda because he knows that the Ukrainians would not accept a ceasefire under any conditions. They didn't even accept one for the Western version of Christmas. And so the idea of the Ukrainians denouncing it is that he made the ceasefire, I guess you could say, request on the idea of this is for people of the Russian Orthodox faith that celebrate Christmas at a certain time. So now that they've denied it, he can go, look, see, the Ukrainians are really oppressing the people inside of the Donbass. They're not allowing them to celebrate Christmas. They're going to continue the war and blow them away if they try and go to a church or something. And that's what he'll be trying to say. So it also reaches that aim. And then it also makes it look like he cares about the troops to the Russian public at home because he can sit there and say, I tried to give them a ceasefire so that way they could enjoy the Christmas holiday too and be in peace and harmony with everyone. Although the reality would be that if the ceasefire was agreed on, the Russian soldiers would be working harder during those 36 hours than they have at probably any point in the war trying to regroup for when the ceasefire ends. So I think it actually achieves all 3 aims in one, but it seems as though, more so to me, the major reason for the ceasefire would be regrouping because that will actually change the situation in the war going forward and doesn't serve as a propaganda point. Because while propaganda is important in turning people's opinions one way or the other, it's not going to actually change the war and have it be won as a result. So it would most likely logically be for regrouping reasons. And so with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well. And let's get on into the next one because I know we had another good one go up earlier.
All right, so the first one that I put up said, will the recent delivery of U.S. Bradleys significantly assist Ukraine's armed forces? 59% said yes, it will be a game changer. 6% said unsure. 34% said somewhat, it'll help a little. And 1% said no, they will be meaningless. I'm going to have to go with the 34% that said somewhat. I think it will help. I don't think it's going to be a game changer necessarily, but it will definitely, certainly help. But Enforcer, what say you?
I say it's a game changer. The idea of a armored personnel carrier or an infantry fighting vehicle being as competent as the Bradley, and there's some things that we're not really considering on the surface here because it's not just the firepower of the Bradley that is massively different than other vehicles. It's also I guess you could say, the ergonomics of the vehicle that also comes into play. The Bradley has greatly improved optics over anything that the Russians and the Ukrainians are using right now as an armored personnel carrier. The BMP-2 and the BMP-3, while having somewhat decent optics, the Bradley is leaps and bounds above them. And so, in terms of practicality, a BMP-2 gun or a BMP-3 probably has as much range or more range than the 25mm Bushmaster on the Bradley. But if you cannot see who you're shooting at, then it's completely pointless what the range is. The Bradley has optics that allows it to use the maximum of its range efficiently with both the Bushmaster and the TOWs. So in that regard, it is better. Also, from what I know, and the gist of what we've been hearing, the Bradley is as easy to keep running as a BMP-3 or a BMP-2, as long as you have a, I guess you could say, a supply chain of parts. So it's not going to be adding any kind of additional strain to keep these things going. And if the West maintains them, it's not, it's a, I guess you could say, a net, like a net neutral, really, for the Ukrainians. They're not having to try and repair them. It's not more difficult to repair them. That's entirely being taken on by the West. So it's not even a concern of theirs. So I would say that this thing is going to be a game changer. Anything that's Western, any Western equipment has always been a game changer. We've seen stuff get introduced into Ukraine and change the way the Ukrainians fight completely. The M777 is an example of that. The HIMARS is an example of that. The MRAPs and different kinds of armored cars that have been sent over by many Western countries has been a great example of that, allowing for the infantry to push up straight onto Russian positions without largely getting destroyed or killed off immediately or instantly. So I would say that this thing is going to be a game changer like that in many regards. Especially, hell, think about this. If this gets used in the same way that a Max Pro gets used, this thing not only has the 25mm Bushmasters to help support the infantry once they get into the town, it also has the TOWs, so that way it can pull back behind the soldiers, remain in a tree line near the village, and if Russian tanks start rolling up to try and reinforce that village, it can knock it out with the TOW-2s without the Ukrainians having to try and account for where they drop off Stugna crews or other kinds of ATGM crews where they can set up in the tree line and try and screen for the forces taking the town. So it's a lot. It's just adding a lot more capability, in my opinion, to the infantry units that will be getting these vehicles. But that's just me. And of course, we'll have to wait and see how these things really perform once they get there, because I may be entirely wrong. You know, people who say it's somewhat okay or terrible, they may be wrong. We don't really know until it's actually there and actually performing, and we actually get some kind of actual data or some kind of video footage showing how it's really operating. And so with that, I hope that does address the poll fairly well there. And now, because I love polls, I'm going to be honest with y'all, polls are pretty neat and pretty fun time to get into side shoots and give more detailed answers on stuff. But we don't have any more polls. We only run 2 at the beginning of
We have one more.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, hey!
We have 3.
Let's go. Let's hear the other one then.
All right. So the third one says, should Ukraine have entertained a ceasefire with Russia? So getting right down to the root question of the issue. 60% said no. It was simply a ruse that Russia used to buy time. 34% said no. Ukraine has momentum. 3% said unsure. And 3% said yes. It could help Ukraine resupply. I don't think Ukraine is really worried about resupplying because they are winning and they are holding their ground pretty well. That was a testament to their supply chain as it currently stands. So I would definitely say that it was a ruse to buy time. But Enforcer, what say you?
It is a ruse to buy time. That's what the Russians are trying to do. They're trying to buy themselves some time where people can not get blown up for a little while and they can actually do something. So that's most likely the direction I would take. Of course, the Ukrainians don't need the time to regroup their supply lines. They've never been shattered, and they've never even gotten into a tough position. At least recently. At the beginning of the war, they actually did have a tough position. They started to have rolling oil shortages and gas shortages across the entirety of Ukraine, which were affecting some parts of the front lines, but they were able to fix that fairly well. We really don't have an answer as to how that was fixed. We don't know where they're getting the oil from, but they're getting it from somewhere. So they did get it fixed. Anyways, with that, I hope that does address the poll fairly well. And that's probably a question that some people are going to be like, who is giving them the oil? I have no idea, because there's really no neighboring countries except for Romania that produce any amount of substantial oil, I guess, that could be used to supply the Ukrainian war effort. So I don't know where it's coming from, unless if it is Romania, and that kind of seems a little odd because Romania has export orders that they most likely have to fulfill, and they can only give so much beyond that in surplus. Especially not...
The United States get wind of that, because they'll be over there in a minute.
Romania has oil? What? But anyways,
oil?
So when you're in your kitchen, Matthew, in a foreign country, and your kid says, "Oh, what are we eating? Oh, I'm making beignets. I just have to go get the cooking oil," and then you hear the Star Spangled Banner getting louder in the distance. And anyways, we are on to the questions. I hope we addressed that poll fairly well.
All right, and moving on to our super chat questions. Up first, we have that tremendous $320 donation from Tom J. Oatley, who's a channel legend, who says, this rhetoric, yes, indeed. Now, this rhetoric about Ukraine and Russia claims Ukraine does not exist, it is not a real country or nation, belong to Russia because of the Russian ethnic minority. Protecting language, culture, and right of existence is all the same as we in Croatia had to go through. I call it an orthodox right to conquer.
And thank you so much for the support, Tom. And I would agree with that as well. It seems as though that's what they're doing. And you also have to remember that as Ukraine as a country with a history was completely independent of Russia until about the 1700s. At that point, the Russian czars and czarinas that were in charge at that time decided that the Cossack nation that existed in the plains of Ukraine, called the Zaporozhian Cossacks, among others, although the Zaporozhians were the largest of the Cossack groups at the time, didn't need to exist, so they conquered them and took them over. And from the 1720s and 30s all the way up until about 1917, the Ukraine was just a part of the Russian Empire. And then, after that, in 1917, during, I guess you could say, the Russian Civil War, Ukrainian nationalists, and, you know, when you say Ukrainian nationalists, it's not always a bad thing, especially in the early 20th century. It was really just people trying to create their own country for their own culture and such. The Ukrainians sprang up, that's the more correct term. The Ukrainians sprang up, and they created this thing called the Ukrainian, let me pull it up, the Ukrainian SFR, I believe it was, Ukraine, let me just type this in instead, 1917 to, I believe it was 1922, yeah, so there we go. So this was called the Ukrainian War of Independence. They lost it in the end. They lost to the Reds. Because in the middle of the whole whites versus red thing in the Russian Civil War that you always hear about, the Ukrainians just played the third party and were like, screw both of them. We're having our own country. And they tried as best they could. They lost, though. And you see that it was the Ukrainian People's Republic, the West Ukrainian People's Republic. They went up against the Russians and also pretty much everyone else that was around at the time. And they lost, sadly. Anyways, getting down here, I'll try and find y'all a map of this thing. You can see right here, here's a map of what Ukraine at the time, the area that they claimed they controlled, consisted of. It actually consisted of some parts of Poland, well, modern-day Poland as it stands now, which is actually kind of weird when you think about it. But anyways, they tried. They weren't able to really pull it off, but that, I guess you could say, would be an instance of the Ukrainians trying to finally break away from the Russian overlords, and unfortunately they didn't, because the next few decades would be nothing but suffering at the hands of the Russians, because the people in charge of Russia and the Soviet Union, like Stalin, hated the Ukrainians and were racist against them, and so they instilled state famines like the Holodomor, committed pogroms against the Ukrainian people, tried to disperse their culture across all the Soviet Union to water it down and eventually destroy it, and they eventually failed. The Ukrainians actually ended up at the breakdown of the Soviet Union hardly having a culture, but they still existed enough to say that they had a sovereign identity, and so they started to slowly, over the past few decades, rebuild themselves so that way they could actually be the Ukrainians they once were. And so that is true in a way. The Russians are really trying to emphasize something they don't really have a right to do. The Ukrainians were in an independent country, conquered by the Russians in the 1700s, liberated themselves during the Russian Civil War, and then were conquered again by them during that Civil War. And they are their own sovereign country, and they're kind of trying to do this orthodox right of conquered thing, although it doesn't really stand up to the tests of time and history itself. And so with that, I got
hopefully the newspaper companies can go back to printing this again, the dismembered Russia, some of the fragments. We need to see that in 2023.
Well, interestingly enough, Matthew, you may not know this, but the United States Army, the U.S. Army, was actually in Russia during the Civil War.
During our Civil War or
No,
during theirs?
During theirs. We were in there.
Huh.
We can actually type it in. Western intervention in the Russian Civil War. And we were there from 1918 to 1922. You can see...
Oh, that makes sense.
And look at that, Matthew. You can see some Allied troops in the town of Vladivostok. These were actually Japanese troops, because at the time, they were allies. They weren't 30 years later, but they were then. You can actually see all.
Why do they like to keep this quiet? Did something bad happen as a result of it?
Not really. It's just that it was a thing. You know, kind of like how people don't really talk about the United States being in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo during the 90s. That's kind of just a thing that everyone just skims over. This is kind of similar to that. It was just kind of like an intervention thing. We set up a perimeter in the north of Russia to try and keep some people safe from everything that was going on there. But eventually, after the Soviets started to come out on top and they were defeating the White Russians, which were the imperialists under the Tsar. Well, the Tsar was killed, but anyways, we left. Everyone left. But here's all the people who were involved. The Czechoslovakians, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, India, South Africa. Of course, at that time, Canada, Australia, India, and South Africa were all just, dominions of the British, so they just went wherever they went. The United States, from 1918 to 1920, France, Japan, Greece, like why the hell was it? Anyways, Estonia, Serbia, Italy, Romania, and also China at the time. Well, it's like, what? It's like, don't they have their own things going on? Like the whole fracturing, the warlord era and everything, but for some reason they arrived and also did a little bit of their own stuff. Anyways, I'll go down here.
Also, did you already address the top option? What does that mean when it said white something?
The White Russians?
White movement?
The White Movement was the people who supported the Tsar, because the Russians' colors were red, the imperialist colors were white, so it was the whites versus the reds, and that's how the Russian Civil War works. No, it's not some kind of white supremacist thing.
Yeah, I thought it was a race thing for a minute.
No. What the hell? Anyways, you can see the troop numbers here. The Americans actually had 11,000 troops in Russia during 1918 and 1920 at a continuous rate, so it was actually a pretty decent amount. And it's kind of weird to think, because these soldiers were wearing the exact same uniforms that I wear in the profile picture for this channel, and they were in Russia, just normal Americans, probably from all over the United States, in the middle of Russia, not even able to speak their language. That's kind of weird and interesting when you think about it, but let me see if I can... Here we go! American troops in Vladivostok. You can see them here with the campaign hats, the putties, the breeches, everything that I'm wearing, they're wearing. That's really cool to me.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you can actually say, unlike the Russians, U.S. forces, U.S. boots have marched on Russian soil before. And I think that's actually...
And they might again.
Yeah, and I guess in the end, the Russians can just cry about it. But anyways, after going through that rabbit hole, I thank you so much once again for the support, Tom Oatley. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you so much for being a channel legend and supporting us so much to keep this channel running. Of course, if it wasn't for support like yours, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. We wouldn't be able to support the coffee fund, the pizza fund, the nitric acid fund, the any of the funds we have. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have another whopping $100 donation from Hal Rose, who says, Enforcer, the ceasefire is a Russian ruse. Mother Russia should pray for real this weekend.
And I would agree as well. The ceasefire is just a ruse by them, and I think they're going to, of course, not respect their own ceasefire because they said it's a unilateral one. The Ukrainians can join if they want or not. How in the hell does that work? Because if the Ukrainians are still fighting you, you still have to fight. There's no real point where you just go, stop, we're not shooting, peace and love. No, it doesn't work like that in the war. So I think they ought to start. I think they ought to start praying because something will be happening. I don't think it'll be big. I think the Russians are just trying to see if they could get a little chance to reorganize, but we'll wait and see because it could be big, and a lot of people are saying it may be big. And so with that, I think
if the Ukrainians wanted to be as dirty as the Russians are, they could agree to the ceasefire and then break it, just like Russia's done several times. But they didn't because Ukraine isn't minded that way.
Well, the Ukrainians have already done that so many times. Like remember at Sumy. When the Russians were encircling Sumy on 3 sides and there was only the one road here. Let's see, what was it called? I can't get the name of it on this map, but this was the only highway out of Sumy that was open. So the Ukrainians said, hey, let's call a ceasefire real quick. We got a lot of citizens that are still inside of Sumy, so that way they can be evacuated through that corridor. And the Russians said, yeah, we'll set up a green corridor with y'all, and we will not shoot for the next 48 hours. And then they lit up every single person that tried to take that highway out of that city.
Yeah, they've broken it several times, and Ukraine has much more honor than Russia because they could have done the same thing, but they won't.
Oh no, they won't. And I think the Ukrainians were really smart in turning down that ceasefire, because if they had accepted it, imagine how quickly the Russians would have broken it and taken some Ukrainian forces off guard during the ceasefire. It would have happened probably within the first 6 hours of the ceasefire. But with that, I hope we have addressed that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support, Halrose. And I think the Russians are pretty stupid for even proposing it, to be honest. But with that, we are on to the final question of this segment, and then, and only then, we'll be moving on to our location unknowns.
All right. And up next, we have a $40 super chat from Psyops, who is a mod and also channel legend, who says, "Hey, Matt, I finished setting up your Grinder and OnlyFans. What else did you want me to set up?" Oh, goodness. Muhaha, Texas stinks. Our love will keep Ukraine warm this winter. Well, that and the heat from Zelensky's powerful thighs.
Psyops.
Thank you for the support, first off.
I thank you for the support, but honestly, I don't even know how to address any of that. To be honest, Matthew, I don't know how to address it. But I do thank you once again for the support, Psyops, and being a silly little fella like you always are. And of course, he's going down there. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and also getting people a good laugh, because that is funny, but I don't know how to address it. So with that, we are on to the next one. Oh wait, actually, that was our last one.
got so messed up. He's going on to the next one. He got so messed up. We're done.
One. Yeah, we're done. We're done. So with that, we're moving on into our location unknowns. And so starting off with our first one, we actually saw a Russian soldier openly admit to genocide in a phone call that was intercepted by the Ukrainians. And so here's the phone call.
Yep.
Also, the translation's at the bottom of the screen in English. Let me see if I can get this up to 540.
Кисуль, это всего лишь хохлы, Кисуль, это всего лишь отребье, это всего лишь пыль, блин. Ну почему ты за них переживаете? Это нации скоро не будет. Ее сотрут с лица земли, понимаешь? И людей этих всех кончат там. А кого не кончат, они сами будут приползать на коленях и просить о пощаде. Забудь ты эту нацию, не будет ее никогда больше в жизни. Осталось совсем чуть-чуть, ее сотрут с лица земли, и все, не будет этой хохлядской ненависти. Они сами виноваты в том, что натворили. Поэтому пусть уже умирает быстренько. И похуй на них тоже, родятся новые у нас. Взял в рот их не детей. Их этих детей, уёбков, ублюдков, обучают в лагерях, понимаешь, чтобы убивали и ненавидели русских. Вот и все. Я тебе все сказал. Хохлядский ребенок, блядь, надо его задушить, нахуй. Еще, блядь, на утробе, нахуй. Поэтому, блядь, я буду так и делать. И делал бы. Ладно, все. Давай, целую, не буду.
Could he have had a worse signal?
Hey, he couldn't have had a worse signal, and also he was sending out some very bad signals in the phone call as well. Who in the hell says just, you know, wipe out the kids too? That's just pure evil.
Yeah, something else.
Yeah, that is. And maybe that guy will catch a bomblet here in the next few days, and if he does, and we can connect the two, we'll make sure to let y'all know, because that guy is sick as hell. And so with that, just wanted to show y'all once again kind of the mindset of some of the Russian forces there, because sometimes people always go, oh, you know, the conscripts and you know, the guys who are there, they don't really want to be there. They don't wish ill will towards the Ukrainians. And then you get phone calls like that to kind of show that that's not the case. We're going to be moving on into the next bit of footage, where we also saw some Ukrainian helicopters firing off unguided rockets towards the Russian forces. Also with some nice beats. Now see the helicopter lifting up, firing off its rockets, and now taking a nice hard left. We can also see a crack in the windshield up there. I wonder if they hit a bird. So that's the end video, but once again, another little look at the helicopters doing their work. And of course, good to know that they're probably hitting the Russians fairly well. And when they get those laser-guided HIMARS, well, not HIMARS, Hydra rockets here in the future, hopefully that'll make them a little bit more accurate than they have been. We're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news. And of course, a lot of y'all are probably looking forward to this. It's the Russian losses, everyone. Ooh. Oh my. That's not good.
Oh, they lost another skidster.
Dang, they lost another one of those stupid Bobcat things. The ripoffs. Man. Also, man, wow, man, look, that number's really climbed. That's an entire BTG's worth of Russian troops that had just been obliterated today.
Well, isn't that something? I couldn't have seen that coming.
Isn't that something? You know, this morning, an entire battalion tactical group woke up and said, "Good morning, everyone. Today we will disappear." And they did. The entire unit is gone. Also, another 2 armored personnel carriers were wiped out, another 14 trucks, 3 tanks, 12 artillery pieces, 2 drones, 2 MLRSs, a plane. Very rare at this point in the war for the Ukrainians to shoot a plane down, a helicopter, and then the skid steer. And we already went through the whole rabbit hole of do they really have Bobcat skid steers? And they actually make a whole several, like 3 ripoffs of a Bobcat skid steer. So that thing, like the little illustration you see here, may have actually been blown away today. We don't know what kind of special equipment vehicle it was, but it's always good to know that they're getting one here and there, so that way the Russians are always on their toes if they're ever trying to build a small home project. So with that, that's the end of the Russian losses, of course, self-explanatory and incredibly high today. 810 soldiers killed is a very high number. And so we're now going to be moving on to our last bit of Location Unknown news, where we also saw some Humvees.
If you believe...
I don't know what that is. If you believe. Oh, you see several Humvees. Humvees are cool. That was a very simple statement, man. That's something you would hear on Russian propaganda. Russia is cool. Humvees are cool. But Humvees are cool. I just like them. I think they're neat. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from the Location Unknowns and on into the front lines now. Moving on into the north in Nizhny Duvanka. We saw the 92nd Brigade in action again. I gotta mute it. They got some pretty good music.
Hey, Honey Badger.
hey, look, it is the Honey Badger. We now see some Su-25s doing a little sortie. Mi-8 flying over some fields. Firing an SPG-9. A really cool edit right there. That was a cool one. Hitting the target. Hitting the target. Roasting the target alive. Call this a crawfish boil. Howdy. Oh, man. We can now see them dropping some bomblets in the trenches. We see a Russian making a run for it. A couple of Russians making a run for it. We now see the bomblets exploding. Again and again and again. And that's the end of the video, but oh, buddy. They're giving it to him. I'll tell you that. And of course, credit to the 92nd Brigade again. Moving on down into the Svatove area and a little bit south of it, we also saw that the Ukrainians today were able to score a direct hit with a Stugna on the infamous TOS-1 thermobaric missile launcher. So I'm going to show you all this.
Выстрел!
Stugna is now on its way. And now out there in the distance, you can see that TOS-1. You can see that giant launcher on top of it. And...
Yes!
Oh,
yes!
It's on fire.
Yes!
Look at that thing. Yes! Look,
Igor!
Yeah, wait, someone in that tank right now is going, what kind of place is this?
Oh my god, my headphones.
But look at this, man. This thing turned into the Russian version of Hell Rider.
Yes! Yes!
It's still going.
Yes.
Yes! Yes!
Yes.
Did the crew survive that, Matthew? I would say the answer to that is a little bit of a toss-up. I actually stole that joke from Nicholas Condor, sorry, but that was a good one.
Oh, thief.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Anyways, with that, we are going to be moving on to the next one, further down the line, and in the Crimea area, because... Let me go to the map real quick. Come on, update. Russians are starting to fall back towards Crimea. There's only a small little garrison left in Dubrova, and that's the only thing stopping the Ukrainians from getting right onto Crimea itself. So their time is nigh, and these guys are getting screwed over right now by their command. So we're now going to be moving on into the videos from this area, where we saw, of course, the Ukrainians dropping a little gritty on the trenches. And boy, can they make the Russian soldiers dance. Also, listen to this music for just a second. I mean, if that doesn't make you hit a gritty, I don't know what will. But we can see the bomblet being dropped. It explodes nearby, and we can see that they start walking a little quicker. They're now going into a dugout. This is always a smart move. No one has ever been obliterated in a dugout before by a bomblet. So now they're dropping it. And... wow, right in front of the entrance. A hole in one. You won't see this on TV, folks. Now I see a guy out in the trench who appears to be going through some kind of form of withdrawals. He's just sitting there, menacingly. Waiting for the next bomblet. Cannon House Joinskin says, don't say that. I think he's talking about the gritty. And I know that a lot of people don't like modern phrases. I honestly think they're kind of a little dumb myself, but I got to tell y'all that this video, no cap, is bussin'. And so with that, we're going to be moving on. We're going to be moving on into the next clip from Kreminna, where we can also see some Ukrainian soldiers closing in. Also, I like the helmets. Those are some nice helmets. And we can see that they're all in pretty good spirits. Little smiles here and there. Tee-hee. So moving on to the next picture. I guess
you could say they hopped on the whip and ran the block.
And they also got the gats. I think that's actually kind of like an older thing. But we can see we can see an AGS right here. This guy once again giving another little smile. Tee-hee. Moving on to the next picture, we can see a Makarov. Oh, nice. Very nice AK as well with a nice little optic. And we can also see this guy here, he's got a pretty interesting AK as well. Also, good kit, and I like how this guy has got a white balaclava. Kind of a little bit of a change. Moving on to our last picture, we can see them moving up a hillside, and they're getting close. Oh, man. These are taking just a couple of miles out of Kreminna, so they're really close at this point. Moving on from that and further down the line from Kreminna and on towards the area of Verkno-Kamyanka, we also got a video today from the Mobiks of Russia saying that the conditions are terrible. And who would have thought? They completely took me off guard by saying this. Also, I was going to see if we could up the graphics, but apparently there's a lack of pixels in Russia, so we're going to have to just watch the video in 240p like it's 2007.
Передовой говоря, пиздец, на. Мобилизация, жонун киллер бәппетке мобилизация хадалларды. Ябаны. Ябаны. Хамайнигер, бу хаталлар тукаддым. Ча командование мактахтихо, армия нолаксы биллати битнахы пизду. Астагадда, тохтагадда нахы.
Бия кас, бешкем.
Манна передовойга манна бешкем.
Бастыгым бия кайта поехали, трана бля, аспасо.
Man, they haven't had food for 4 days. They're like, they gave us a packed lunch like at school, you know, the ham sandwich, the little pack of grape juice, and like the nasty graham crackers that they put in those little bags. They gave them a packed lunch on the first day, and they haven't had food since. Oh, man, that's good.
He's doing all right now to have eaten for 4 days.
That's true.
Армия мишуй дилетем дана тоқтолар ибатах блять. Агадой дехризин хагана.
Армия мия.
Белля. Де парат каркремин гөргө дөрлөр хай. Техника хоймой. Артиллерия ганта пилот онтоны тыдыр блять. Куй көрбөк күн. Бәбеден да тыдыктырын хеп. Бардак нахуй. Ну пехот эвет хамай ту. Эли.
Свегардина бедледи бейтни зайна.
Бе вурдук жоннор бу передовойга. Көннөрү жоннор блять. О каханары блять. Тогонусуларга блять. Хулус баламарам бу блять.
And that's the end of the video. And it looks like these guys aren't really having a fun time. Why in the world was this recorded, though, Matthew? Like it was like a vlogger who accidentally joined the military, and now they're giving their review on military life. Why was it filmed like that? That was kind of funny to me. But anyways,
like, what did he tell this guy? Like he said, "Come here real quick. I need you to stand to the left of me real quick. We're going to film something." Okay.
This is for some reason gives me like Bald and Bankrupt vibes. Hello everyone, I am Tibrova, and after I got done chilling today, I'm going to go with Johnny here and go to a local bar and try and pick up some women that I won't show you on film because I'm kind of, you know, a little sleazy that way. Anyways, we're going to be moving on from this little clip and on down into our next one, down in the Bakhmut area, because Bakhmut's been a little heated today as normal. On our first clip, we can see the Ukrainians setting up a little bit of drone electronic warfare. Interesting. Courtesy to Radio Free Europe for the footage, by the way.
Good to see the Matrix in action.
Да, зараз цей напрямок, в принципі, найважливіший на фронті. Ну, всі бачать, яка м'ясорубка відбувається під Бахмутом. От. І він відіграє ключову роль в обороні всього сходу нашої держави. Ці умови, я б сказав, що вони прийнятні порівняно з тим, які геройство чинить наша піхота зараз, то в якому багні, болоті вона працює, то я вважаю, що у нас нормальні умови. У нас є техніка, на крайній випадок, де ми можемо переночувати. Ми не знаходимося під постійними обстрілами. У нас іноді є можливість там зігрітися тут, да, тому що в техніці там є котел, наприклад.
І так, працюємо, бляха.
Once again, very clean on the inside of this SPG.
Why do they do this? Why do people want to do it?
He literally
stood to the left of the barrel.
He literally stood in the wash of the muzzle. Like, why? Why would you do that?
That's not cool. That's stupid.
Watch, look. Right here, this man made a terrible mistake. Man, why? I don't understand why, you know? Anyways.
Це найпотужніша бригадна артилерія, тобто ці установки
It blew water on the camera.
для прикриття своєї ж власної піхоти на передовій. Оскільки роботи доволі багато, то гармати працюють зі стаціонарних позицій, тобто після ведення вогню їх не змінюють.
Це залежить від цілі, тобто на одну ціль ми можемо, наприклад, там витратити 30, на іншу ми можемо витратити 40, тобто залежить від цілі, поки ми не досягнемо того результату, який ми хочемо досягнути. Як тільки ми досягли цього результату, відповідно, робота по цілі завершується.
Тихо.
Здається, це вже влітку було, в червні. Був такий приємний момент, що ми відпрацювали, по нам почався обстріл, контрбатарейна на нас почали працювати. Ми сховалися в укриття, чекаємо.
One second, I gotta pause this because I gotta give a little bit of a shout out to Sitting and Thinking. He said he's a reporter and there was no hurricane handy, so he had to get in the way of the next thing that had a violent gust of wind, which is the muzzle brake of the 2S3.
Тут чуємо, як у нас із-за спини починає працювати 3 сімки. От по контрбатарейна, скажімо так, проти ворога, який стріляє по нас. І ворог заткнувся, і так було приємно. Ми навіть не знали, що є такий сервіс взагалі в наявності. Щоб було кому заткнути тих, хто намагається заткнути нас. Це от найстрашніше, мабуть, для артилериста – це побачити або найчастіше почути звук пташки в небі. Оце найстрашніше, тому що ти розумієш, що по тобі будуть стріляти до тих пір, поки не попадуть, а коли попадуть, то ще накинуть.
Якщо порівняти з півднем, наприклад, і зараз Бахмутський напрямок, то тут противник скупчив свої сили, вогнові сили, також радіоборотьбу, набагато складніше працювати, якщо взяти по дронах. Тут відбувається така насиченість якби, боротьби дронів і артилерії.
Дуже сильно працює ворожий реп. Ми вже мали втрати, на жаль. Буває так, що реп працює на низькій висоті, буває, що він працює на 200 метрів, 250 метрів. Це все треба прощупувати, це вже все з досвідом. Деколи болісним досвідом, тому що хто не літає, той не втрачає борти. Відповідно, нам також борти треба, тому що вони у нас зараз дуже розхідний матеріал.
Щоб розвідати, на одному зумі не розвідаєш, мусиш все-таки підлетіти кудись далі, залетіти, ризикнути. Тобто так само ризик є, ну як і в будь-якій роботі військовій, ну ризик є всюди.
Oh, wow, that was a nice shot.
чесно, я ніколи не був готовий працювати професійним військовим. Мобілізувався на початку березня цього року. Так, адвокат – це моя цивільна професія. До того працював в Києві. Настала війна, я пішов добровольцем. Звісно, у нас в підрозділі є значно наші побратими, які є кадровими.
Your Honor, I sentence this Russian to be guilty. As the judge as well, and also being the attorney, I have to second that. And as the prosecutor, he is guilty. The jury, what do you say? Guilty. All right, get him. And he's all the one and the same guy now. He's the front line. He's the judge, the jury, and the executioner. A very overused line.
The Russian said, "I would like to leave." He said, "Objection."
Objection, Your Honor. Case dismissed.
Насправді зараз стираються такі межі між мобілізованими і контрактниками, да, і кадровими військовими, тому що війна і це бойове братерство. Тут ми всі в одному котлі, у нас всіх одна ціль – знищити ворога, задушити його, тому що якщо в іншому випадку він задушить нас і слава в нас немає.
Hey, is a battle log?
Oh, it is a battle log. I didn't notice that until the end. But that's the end of that little clip, and once again showing you all the artillery in operation around the Bakhmut area. Moving on from that, we can also see the Azov unit in Bakhmut, and on the back of a YPR 765 right here. We can see some pictures of them. See some more pictures of them. We can see some more pictures of him. Look at this guy. Look at the smile he's got. That's a sincere smile. A happy one. A warm one. And then the last picture, we can see this guy here looking at the camera, but we can't see his facial expression. Still, it's good to know the Azov unit is there and also fighting for Bakhmut as well. Moving on to our next bit of news from Bakhmut, we can also see a street in Bakhmut before and after. Here is August 1st and what the street looked like. And here is January 4th. You can see that the entire area is pockmarked with craters, and every single building in this area has been destroyed or completely leveled, one or the other. And so with that, we're now moving on to our next bit of news from the Bakhmut area as well, where we can also see another update on Bakhmut from the one and only the man of Bakhmut. And so here's the video.
Доброго ранку, Україна. Ми з братом Фоксом приїхали брата Вурдалаку і кума міняти на зміні на позиції. Брат Вурдалак зараз коротко повідомить вас про події за минулу добу.
Бажаю здоров'я. Оперативна ситуація на участку, який ми контролюємо, складна. Ворог намагався вчора декілька разів проводити наступальні дії, але наш підрозділ та зміжні підрозділи стримали цю навалу. Хлопці, які знаходяться безпосередньо на нулі, вам респект, ви реально круті чуваки, без вас нічого не буде. Ще декілька слів хочу сказати про наших командирів. Де іноді кажуть, що командири сидять і, як кажуть, протирають штани в штабі. Наші командири нашого підрозділу, я з гордістю можу сказати, що вони безпосередньо, якщо потрібно, знаходяться з хлопцями на нулі. Всю обстановку вони контролюють. Я пишаюсь, що я служу в цьому підрозділі. Слава Україні!
Друзі, коротко додам. Оперативна обстановка складна. Ворог масою піхоти намагається на стиках продавити наші позиції, особливо на стиках підрозділів. Лізуть цілу ніч. На трати взагалі там вони ніяк не зважають. І намагаються виконати задачу, поставлену старим бункерним дідом. Але незважаючи на все, лінія оборони стоїть, лінія оборони тримається. Єдине, що хочу ще так коротко додати, вчора прочитав, будучи не на зміні в інтернеті, що Болгарія там відмовляється від поставки деяких видів озброєння Україні. Ми в політику ніколи не ліземо, але коли я прочитав, що сексолога назначили послом Болгарії в Україні, а Болгарія має значні запаси 82-й, 120-х, 122-й, 150-й калібр, то в мене такі передчуття були негарні. Будемо думати, що це випадковість, Але якщо там в найближчий час ситуація не вирівняться, то, мабуть, кадрові зміни треба робити не тільки тому послу замінити на більш компетентного, а і навіть хтось же лобіював там, міністр Кулеба носив на підпис до президента призначення. Ми в політику не ліземо, але міни і снаряди нам треба в Бахмуті. Якщо хтось цього не розуміє, хай приїде з нами тут посидить, а потім будуть дивитися про оперативну обстановку на діпстейті. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
So that's the end of the video, and of course the summary of what's been going on in Bakhmut. They are still holding the line as of right now, and from what we can tell over the past 24 hours, the Russians have moved very little, if not at all. Here, I'll show y'all. So here's the third, here's the fourth. They moved a little bit further up the highway, but beyond that, actually, hell, they actually moved a pretty decent ways up towards Krasnohora, according to Deep State UA. So we'll have to see what that entails, because it looks like the chicken tender, it looks like the Russians have actually passed the summit on the chicken tender for the first time. They're now getting over onto the other side, so we may see that the Ukrainians will start to fall back towards the rear ridges, but still not that much movement, and we'll try and keep up to date on this and see how it's continuing from here forward. Moving on to the next clip of news, we can also see some heavy damage in Bakhmut once again.
Так виглядає житловий будинок. Подивитесь, тут наша оглядова точка. Це вже сама квартира. Дивіться, це житлова секція квартири. Ось такий руський мір. Був приход прямий прямо в будинок. І впав весь будинок, всі поверхи. Покажу. Зараз. Так, дивіться. Бережно. Це дивіться. Це жахіття. Тут жили люди, було життя. Люди будували на майбутнє свої плани, але прийшли русняві і зруйнували життя. Але ми все відбудуємо, відіб'ємо, все буде Україна. Згодні? Слава Україні.
Друзі, все буде Україна, все порушено відбудуємо.
Так.
Бахмут – це Україна. ЗСУ непереможні, Україна найкраща. Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
And so with that, that's the end of the video. But of course,
It catches me off guard a little bit when they say that.
well, you know, we know what it means now. It just means nation. But with that, we're now moving on to the next clip from Bakhmut, where we can also see the Azov hitting the Russians today as well. Not only were they riding around in style, but they're also slamming the Russians around a little bit too. Also with some heavy metal. But we can see them hitting the Russians on that road right there, firing off the artillery, and getting off those shots that count, like this one. See a helicopter flying in front of one of the artillery's positions. We've actually seen this clip a little while ago. And with that, that's the end of that video. But once again, nice to see that they are hitting the Russians consistently. Moving all the way down to the furthest southern point of the line, we also saw the Ukrainians found a sneaky mine and dug it out of the ground. Well, out of the road, more like.
Нашли с дядей Колей, вернее как.
Вот она, сучка, блядь.
Не зря все-таки поехали, хуй с ним щуку не поймали.
Оп. И что у нас тут ёбаный?
I don't know how the hell they found this thing. You know, like what? Like does this guy just have a nose that can sniff out anti-tank mines or something? Because it's like in the road. You know, it's covered in stuff. You can tell that they didn't go and make this whole entire thing up. It's been down there for a while. And then he's like, I sniff a mine, and then he just goes and rips it out of the ground.
Не зря все-таки поехали.
Oh yeah, he must have been using the poker, like the little iron poker, and poking around until he felt something solid, and then he dug up the road there. That must be why.
И что у нас тут ёбаный в рот?
Вообще даже 62, блядь, нахуй.
Оце ми поліплі нахуй.
Та це пизда, будто бы нахуй разорвало. Дядя Коля, ты мой
Whips out the AK, just shoots it. But that's the end of the video. I gotta give credit to that guy for finding that thing. That was a pretty lucky one. And so with that, we're now moving out of the Bakhmut area and down into Donetsk, where our last bit of news is. And I won't be going over the other areas because there's no news to report from down here, and nothing happened anyways. And we're starting to run overtime. And so we can see that a Ukrainian tank was advancing on a Russian trench today, a little bit more aggressively than normal. So here's the video. When you see the tank moving up, when you see it firing right into the trench point blank and charging the trench. We rarely ever see Ukrainian tanks do something like this, but this guy is going all in for it. They've now pulled up right onto the trench and blew some of it away. That's to say the least. And now you can see a guy at the end of the video smiling and laughing from all the joy he got of watching these people get blown away. And so that's the end of the video. And someone needs to tell this guy that this is no laughing matter. This is a war. But with that, we're moving on out to Donetsk. And of course, the front line has not moved here. And there's nothing to report along the rest of the front lines. Nothing has happened. And so now it's time for us to get up to Kyiv to listen to the speech from President Zelenskyy here on day 317 of the war, the first day of a brand new week. And so, without further ado, here's the speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні був черговий активний дипломатичний день. Ще 4 лідери держав-партнерів повністю поінформовані про українські оборонні потреби, про найближчі плани держави-терориста. Росії не вдасться приховати у тиші підготовку до нової хвилі агресії проти України і всієї Європи. Світ знатиме у всіх деталях, як і коли агресор готує нову ескалацію у цій війні. І кожен новий мобілізаційний крок Росії буде відомий світу ще до того, як Росія його здійснить. Ми це забезпечимо і щоденно зміцнюємо оборону України. З усіма лідерами обговорюю обов'язково 2 речі. Більше оборонної підтримки для нашої держави, тобто більше зброї для нашої армії та більше захисту усім українцям. Захист на землі, в небі, на морі. Моя сьогоднішня розмова з прем'єр-міністром Хорватії Пленковичем була не тільки змістовною, як і завжди, але й доволі надихаючою. Я почув повну підтримку нашої держави, а також почув готовність Хорватії бути лідером в реалізації саме тих кроків, які гарантують повернення елементів безпеки Україні і загалом Європі. Хорватія готова бути лідером в тих зусиллях, які необхідні для очищення нашої землі від російських мін і снарядів, що не розірвалися. Це одне з життєво важливих завдань для нашої держави і усіх європейців. Жодна частина Європи не має бути і не буде забруднена мінами, якби Росія не намагалася наповнити нашу землю своїми знаряддями смерті. Моя розмова з президентом Латвії сьогодні також була присвячена тому шляху, який має пройти увесь наш континент, щоб після поразки російської агресії була гарантована по-справжньому надійна безпека. Ми обговорили пункти української формули миру, і безпекові, і те, що стосується відновлення нашої територіальної цілісності та повної сили статуту ООН, і справедливої відповідальності Росії та усіх її вбивць за терор проти українців. Відзначу також розмову з президентом Туреччини Ердоганом. Вона стосувалась багатьох елементів безпеки в нашому Чорноморському регіоні. Звичайно, ми говорили про необхідні кроки для гарантування продовольчої безпеки та про те, що треба зробити для ядерної безпеки і недопущення будь-яких радіаційних інцидентів, загрозу яких Росія зробила, на жаль, цілком реальною. Говорили також і про динаміку ситуації в нашому регіоні, про те, що господарі Росії зараз у доволі відчайдушному становищі через поразки окупантів на фронті і готові до різноманітних маніпуляцій. Я дякую президенту Ердогану за підтримку нашої держави і необхідності саме чесного відновлення безпеки України та усієї Європи на основі відновлення нашої територіальної цілісності. Дуже змістовною і вчасною була моя сьогоднішня розмова з прем'єр-міністром Іспанії Санчесом. Напередодні нової зустрічі в форматі Рамштайну дуже важливо, щоб кожен з наших партнерів знав на 100% реальну ситуацію на передовій і те, до чого готові наші сили оборони. Дякую пану прем'єр-міністру Санчесу та усім іспанцям за незмінну підтримку нашого прагнення захистити свободу. І окремо хочу сьогодні подякувати президенту Байдену і канцлеру Шольцу за рішення посилити нашу оборону. Дуже вагоме рішення. Матимемо ще одну батарею «Петріот» і потужну бронетехніку, і це дійсно велика перемога для нашої держави. Всі деталі, терміни будуть завтра після моєї розмови з паном канцлером. Сьогодні ж провів і засідання Ставки, присвячене передусім потребам Збройних сил України та усіх наших сил оборони і безпеки. Ми розуміємо, що маємо використовувати найближчий час, січень і початок лютого, щоб бути готовими до будь-яких спроб терористів ввести в дію нові мобілізаційні ресурси Росії. Я хочу сьогодні відзначити наших бійців 54-ї окремої механізованої бригади, які вже багато місяців успішно утримують позиції на Бахмутському напрямку, а також бійців 35-ї бригади морської піхоти за поступове, крок за кроком, звільнення наших територій на Донецькому напрямку. Дякую, воїни! Дякую кожному і кожній, хто забезпечує нам зараз надзвичайно потрібну стійкість и просування в Донецкой та Луганской областях. И еще кое-что, о чем я хочу напомнить сегодня гражданам России. 15 ноября была представлена украинская формула мира. Один из ее пунктов предусматривает выведение российских оккупационных войск с территории нашей страны. Это гарантированный и надежный способ прекратить огонь, человеческие потери и вообще войну. По состоянию на утро того же дня количество убитых российских солдат было 82 тысячи. 12 декабря Россия получила предложение начать выполнение формулы мира с вывода оккупационных войск именно на Рождество. По состоянию уже на тот день количество убитых российских солдат было почти 95 тысяч. Оба наши предложения руководители вашей страны, видимо, не услышали там, где они, видимо, глубоко и не слышно. По состоянию на сегодня вы потеряли убитыми на этой войне уже почти 110 тысяч своих солдат. Те, кто продолжал террор против нашей страны и посылал всех этих ваших людей на убой, отказывались от наших предложений о прекращении российской агрессии, точно не ценят жизни и тем более не стремятся к миру. Сейчас они хотят использовать Рождество как прикрытие, чтобы хоть ненадолго остановить продвижение наших парней на Донбассе и подогнать ближе к нашим позициям технику, боеприпасы и мобилизованных. Что это даст? Ну, только очередное увеличение счета потерь. Все в мире знают, как Кремль использует передышки на войне, чтобы продолжить войну с новой силой. А чтобы закончить войну быстрее, нужно совсем другое. Нужно, чтобы граждане России нашли в себе смелость хотя бы на 36 часов, хотя бы во время Рождества освободиться от своего позорного страха перед одним человеком в Кремле. Ваш страх перед ним уничтожает вашу страну, которая тоже уже глубоко, но не в бункере. Закончить войну – это закончить агрессию вашего государства. Даже когда ваши ракеты и дроны не бьют по нашим городам, террор на оккупированных территориях продолжается. Никаких передышек вы украинцам не даете. Людей пытают, бьют током, насилуют. Это продолжается каждый день, пока ваши солдаты на нашей земле. И война закончится тогда, когда ваши солдаты или уйдут, или мы их выгоним. Так что пусть собирают унитазы, они им в пути понадобятся, и возвращаются к себе за нашу границу от 1991 года. Я дякую усім, хто допомагає нашим людям захищати свободу. Дякую всім, хто воює і працює заради того, щоб терористи зазнали поразки. Слава нашому міцному народу. Слава Україні!
And with that, That is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and that, of course, wraps up our Day 317 news segment. Thank you all so much once again for watching this part of the stream. We're about to be moving into the question segment and answering all of the super chats that have been sent in tonight, and also answering all of the live chats that have been sent in tonight as well. But before we get to that, I got to thank you all so much who are about to get off for the night for watching this stream. If y'all did enjoy and have not subscribed, make sure to subscribe, because this stream runs every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, except for Mondays. And so with that, we are moving on into the polls real quick. And what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so we have two to round off the final question segment. And the first one says, witnessing Ukraine's success, do you think that Ukraine has spies inside the Kremlin? 51% said yes, they probably have inside sources. 20% said unlikely but possible. 18% said no, they rely on NATO intelligence. And 11% said unsure and undecided. So on this one, I'm going to have to say unlikely but possible. And I'm going to lean toward the direction of that they rely on NATO intelligence. I'm pretty sure that NATO definitely has spies inside the Kremlin. I'm not really sure if Ukraine does, though. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that they probably have spies inside of Russia. Spies inside of the Kremlin, probably not. But I'm sure that there are spies gathering critical information elsewhere in the country. And so with that, I hope that addresses the poll fairly well. And the reason, well, you know, I'm going to be honest, Matthew. I was just thinking about those two guys from, what was it, Pakistan, that were Secret Service guards for 2 years, and they really weren't. I think that there probably is people inside of the Kremlin, because considering that the United States let something like that fly under the radar for 2 years and never picked up on it, I would assume that the Russians are doing a lot worse. So there probably is something at the Kremlin. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And we are on into the next one.
And the second poll says the U.S. is considering training Ukrainian forces in the U.S., says the Pentagon. Will it happen? 81% said most likely yes. 10% said unsure, and 9% said not likely, it's too complex. On this one, if I'm being perfectly honest, it sounds like that might be a stretch. I'm going to have to say unsure, but I'm kind of leaning toward not likely. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm going to say yes. I think that we will bring Ukrainian forces over here and train them, because you have to remember, we've done that already. I mean, we've already done that with the M777. We've also done that with the F-16 program, where we trained Ukrainian pilots how to fly F-16s, and we sent them back and never sent the F-16s. We've done that already, so I do think that we will be seeing them come over and being trained in the infantry role as well.
I think they mean a much larger scale, like bringing over a lot just to train them into ground troop roles.
Oh, yeah, sure. I think we would do that. I think that's probably on the horizon here soon. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And we are on into the next one.
All right. So that was our last poll. So we are moving into our super chat questions. And let's see here. Oh, hold on. We just got the Morse. Got to grab this real quick. Hold on just a minute. I almost forgot. But anyways, thank you, Mark, for solving the Morse once again. Let me put that in the spreadsheet. It's taking a minute to get it in there, but there we go.
I don't think Mark has missed a night.
Yes, Mark has not missed a night, but I have missed a few nights. But anyways, moving on to our super chats, we have a $100 donation from Rope Access Work, and thank you very much for that generous support. They say Ukraine needs to get longer range weapons so they can fight those who send drones into Ukraine. Today, they have to use expensive systems to shoot down cheap drones.
And I would say, yeah, I would agree with that. I think that they should be getting more missiles like the Tu-141s, but more advanced than that, maybe Tomahawks. So that way they can fire them inside of Russia and destroy these bases that are most likely launching these drones and also different kinds of missiles from. So I would agree with that, actually, 100%. I think that is something that we should look into, or the Ukrainians should look into, and try and get that ability for them, so that way they can strike at these bases preemptively before they can be used against them. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the incredible amount of support Rope Access Work and helping us to keep this channel running. And I gotta say, if we know of anyone who can get some rope access work done for us, it would be you. And so thank you so much once again for the support, and we are on to the next one. And also, long live the LSA.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $25 super chat from Diana DeLuna, who says, from an older person who geeked out over Yakko's Countries of the World song the first time around in '93, special request, please replay the Igor video because I never saw it. Thanks.
Dang, we don't know where it went. That's the problem. We don't know what stream or what week that was on and what marker it is. So unfortunately, it's not that easy to go back to. And I hate to say that because I wish I could bring it up, because Matthew and me have been trying to put that thing into the intro for a while now. But the problem is I cannot find it, and I haven't heard of anyone else who's found it yet either. So the Igor thing kind of like is a huge joke, and it was hilarious when it happened, but nobody really knows when it happened, although it's just like 2 weeks ago at least. So I hate to say it, but we can't pull it up and show it right now. But I do thank you so much for the support, and I hope you do understand why we can't. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Peter Gambacorda, who says, "Hi, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt. Have you guys ever considered doing a donation stream for the Guild Foundation? A friend of mine has become involved in helping Roman, a 23-year-old Ukrainian injured on the front line, 4 of 22. He's here in Philly."
1 second. I'm actually going to pull this up real quick, so that way I can show you all this. We always run our fundraisers through YouTube Give. We have never run one outside of it, and we probably never will, because there's no way for us to account for the safety of donors unless we use this, because YouTube ensures its safety. So let me go to the monetization tab here, and let me go to giving. Let me go down to add a fundraiser. And I'm going to do this on stream, just to show. So we're going to create a fundraiser, and now we can go through and we can pick out of the registered nonprofits and all that stuff. So what was the name of it again, Matthew?
It was the Guild Foundation.
The Guild.
Also, Bobby Caralfa has found the stream in which the Igor thing happened. 1 hour and 49 minutes. Thank you, Bobby. I'm going to write that down right now.
And make sure to remind me of that after we get done addressing this real quick. But as you can see right here, the Guild Foundation does not show up as a nonprofit that we can use. All the nonprofits that we ever run fundraisers for are registered through the GuideStar.org program, which is I believe the 501c nonprofits that are registered here in the United States that we can actually fundraise for. YouTube can collect the funds and then send it to them. So unfortunately, we can't. We can run fundraisers for other ones, though, like Razom for Ukraine, Revive Soldiers of Ukraine, Save the Children, World Central Kitchen, the International Humane Society, IRC, all of those fundraisers, because we can actually put them in and they actually have an EIN, or let me make sure that's the correct one. Yeah, an EIN. You can see right down there they have a number and a registration with the United States through the 501c, and so they are actual nonprofits that we can do on YouTube. Unless if it is in that category, we sadly cannot run a fundraiser for them, and we don't want to set a precedent where we do, because this is the problem we're always looking at with that. I run them here because they're safe. Then we do one fundraiser, or we support something like that, you know, like a PayPal or something similar, and I say, hey, let's go over there and support that. And then someone comes through with a scam one day, and they're like, hey, I want y'all to support my PayPal so I can get a $20,000 drone. And then I say no to them. Well, why is that? Do you not really like Ukraine? You've done it before. And then, you know, I've got to deal with that whole problem. And then people are going, yeah, why? And then, you know, I explain why, you know, because we trust some people, but we don't trust others. And then people get, you know, peed about that. So unfortunately, we can only run them through YouTube. I hope y'all understand. It's to ensure that when y'all do support these fundraisers, they actually get to where they're supposed to go, and not set a precedent where we may go down the slippery slope of then ending up supporting like crypto punks or something like that in the future where everyone gets scammed. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And while I would love to support that because it sounds like a great organization, I don't want to set a precedent where we could end up running into rough ground in the future. But with that, I hope that does address the comment. Thank you so much once again for the support, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one we have is from Jose Diaz, who puts in a $20 donation. He says, "Glory to the US, UK, EU, Canada, Australia, Ukraine, and the free world. Long live our Constitution and our democratic republic. Thanks to Enforcer Matt, and LSA." And wait a minute. Jose, you didn't say your line.
Yeah, you did, and I was about to say, like, you didn't say it, man. But I gotta thank you
so much.
Arecibo,
Puerto Rico, though.
Yeah, what the LSA from Arecibo, Puerto Rico. Where was that, man? You owe us. You owe us, Jose. You owe it. That is your line. That is like Walter A. Lakota coming in and saying it's the LSA OG Bosun. It's like his thing. You got to do your thing, man. You have a shtick. You got to keep with it. But still, I thank you so much for the support, and I agree with that entirely. It's good to know that the United States stands fairly strong, and while there's always a little bit of infighting, it's a pretty decently strong country. And so I got to thank you so much once again For the support, Jose, I'm still thrown off that you didn't say your normal.
Hey, he put it in.
Hey,
He said
there
RC
it is.
before
There
we
it is.
go.
All right, so the grievance is forgiven, Jose. We now forgive you for not including that. It has been included now. But thank you so much once again for the support, and it's good to know that the United States stands strong and supports the right causes around the world. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much, Jose, for being a LSA legend. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, if you want to show the Igor clip, I did send that to you in the Discord. If you want to look into your chat.
I actually can find it on YouTube, good sir. I will find this on YouTube. And also, this will be a learning lesson. So we're at my channel right now. Boom. Here's my channel. You'll see right here that it says videos, and then it says Ukrainian War day-by-day news, and then Enforcer short clips. But the live streams, the most recent ones, they're not here. Where the hell are they? Well, better yet, where am I? I'm right there. That's actually me, and that's actually Matthew now that I roll the video. But anyways, if you go to the live section right here and you click this, you can see last night's stream. You can see all of them day after day. It's really cool, actually. I never really go back and look at this much, but still pretty cool. So it was actually 2 weeks ago at 1 hour and 49 minutes in. So let's go to 1 hour and 49. Yep, that's it. That's it. I know it when I see it. That is it. Further down and into the Donetsk area, we also saw a Ukrainian tank operating with drone support. This time, the drone wasn't eyeballing this tank to try and get it destroyed. It was actually eyeballing the tank to help it out on where to fire, which was very interesting because this is one of the first recorded instances where we've seen that a Ukrainian drone was used to support a Ukrainian tank on the ground below it. We can see the Ukrainian tank rolling forward. Wait, hang on. It looks like we might be having... Wait, let me make sure OBS is still connected real quick. Yep, it is. All right, we're good.
Was this from last night or today?
This is from last night. Well, actually, this is from 2 weeks ago.
Oh. Are we having lag tonight or back then?
We were having lag.
I'm so confused right now. Are you saying that right now?
Just sit here and watch the video. Load any second now, but it's actually going to be blowing up everything else.
Уебать. Это было эпично.
Зверь.
Это было эпично.
Now I see the tank stopping. And it appears the drone's now looking out into the distance.
Igor!
Igor! That must be the tank. That is the first time we ever said Igor on the stream, by the way. That and also Master None said Enforced Reception. And Matthew was getting so confused he wasn't even listening to me now. I was like, no, we were talking about like tonight. I don't know what we're talking about. I'm so confused. I was just like, just watch the video. Just watch the video. Commander.
Yeah, what's crazy is I was even confused back then when it was going on too.
Yeah. I didn't know if that was you
you talking right now?
Yes, this is me talking right now.
Okay.
That's why I'm actually interacting with you, responding to you.
Igor! Wow, Igor!
This guy.
This guy. You just literally said the same thing, Matthew. You literally, like, present day, you said, this guy.
That guy.
Oh, that guy. Hyping up that tank commander. He's like, Igor, hitting another 10 out of 10.
I like the energy.
Еще право чуть-чуть.
I'm waiting for it again. Come on, where's shot number 4?
Блядь, чуть-чуть.
Oh, that one wasn't good enough.
Блядь.
That one wasn't good enough either.
Igor!
Yes! Yes, блядь! Сука! Слава Украине! Ах, как хорошо!
Igor!
Блядь, красавчики, пацаны!
But anyways, to cut this a little bit short, that is where the whole Igor thing came from. Because this guy was just so hyped up. Like, he was just coming going, yes, Igor! And it was hilarious as hell. That's why we love it so much. And that's also why there is now an Igor shirt on the Enforcer store. Also, look man, dude, this is crazy. This is literally Enforced Reception here. Here's the live chat. And right now, we have a couple of people that are visible in our live chat tonight that are visible here. Like Uncle Grandpa and Dupper Bob. Like, they're in the live chat right now tonight. And they're in the live chat there on stream. That's weird, actually. That's so weird. You can actually see the whole replay live, like the chat and everything. Oh, you know, everyone's still doing that. I love it. Anyways, with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well that we weren't able to address a second ago because we said it would be too hard to find, but we found it. And so I hope you enjoy finding out where the Igor came from. By the way, merciless plug, if you type in enforcerstore.com, well, it's just very similar to the Gucci store. Because I gotta be honest with y'all, these prices. But anyways, you can see here the Igor limited edition merch. You can see that we have a hoodie, we have a sticker, we have a t-shirt, and we have a mug. Igor! And so if you want to support the channel and also remember Igor, you can get this yourself. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next question.
We're moving on to the next one for real?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were faking it. But anyways, up next we have a super chat from Panama Floyd, who puts in a $20 donation and says Turkey was a much more secular nation when they joined NATO, and since Erdogan, they are the NATO equivalent of Russia on the USSC.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think turkey was a very good Christmas dish. I personally like turkey a decent amount. I don't know why people like to eat ham, though. I guess they're trying to just change up the flair. But to me, I think that turkey is largely decent, actually. I think it's a pretty good food. And so that, I'm just kidding. That is true. Turkey was fairly different back when it joined NATO. It's going through a decent amount of changes lately. But we don't want to get into the politics of that because, you know, that can go and become something that reflects on the United States, and then that starts a whole political conundrum here because, you know, you know what I mean. Trust me, bro. And so with that, to say the least, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And our next one goes to Rustin Rod, who puts in a $15 donation and says, greetings from Vancouver Island. What is the size of the armed forces of Ukraine?
Right now, we're guessing that the size of the armed forces of Ukraine is actually somewhere around 1 million. Based off of all the people who have either volunteered or have been conscripted by the Ukrainians during the enactment of the martial law, and also the order that all males in between the ages of 18 to 60 must stay in the country in case they're called on for military service. So it's probably on up there. Although all of those are not frontline soldiers, a lot of them are probably being used as truck drivers and other forms of logistical support, because we don't ever really see poorly trained Ukrainian units facing the Russians. They're usually fairly well trained by the time they reach the front. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, the question fairly well. And once again, I have to say this, while I'm saying it's close to 1 million, I'm saying that it's close because we don't really know for certain, and they haven't published a recent number on how big the Ukrainian military has actually gotten. The only number we have is pre-war, and we know that it's definitely grown since then. And so with that, I hope that does address the question the best we can, and also account for the discrepancy that there may be in the reporting. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Bob Anon, who puts in a $15 donation and says, do you think the Russian Z could have been a veiled attempt to snub the West by saying, just do it, as they rolled tanks across the border?
I don't know. I don't think there was ever a Z involved in the Just Do It campaign. I mean, like, you know, there was Shia LaBeouf, and then there was that little Nike Swish thing, but I don't think there was a Z. So unless I'm mistaken, I don't think it has any correlation to the Just Do It thing. But I do thank you so much for the support, and I hope that addresses the question at least the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
Indeed. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from North Sea USA, who says, LSA duty equal life.
And thank you so much for the support. And LSA service is for life. I don't know if y'all know this, but once you watch this channel and subscribe, you are a member of the LSA for the rest of your life. It will never go away. In fact, when I run for president in 2040, I hope to hear people chanting out in the audience, "Long live the LSA." I want to hear that. I think that would be super cool at that point, Matthew, that it was that big of a deal. I'd be like, holy moly, that would actually be pretty crazy. But with that, I gotta thank y'all so much once again for the support, and also thank you for your lifelong eternal service to the Lee Spring Army. Also, even in death, y'all serve, because y'all's memory will serve as the founding fathers. Well, not really the founding fathers, there's not really a lot of founding fathers. Really, it's just me. Like, I'm the only founding father here. I made the channel. But y'all will be remembered as the first generation of Lee Spring Army members, and hopefully the ones that will help to make this nation even greater. And so with that, thank you so much once again to all of y'all, so much for y'all's LSA support. And also, if you consider yourself a lifelong member of the LSA, if you're a subscriber pretty much, put long live the LSA in the live chat, because I'd like to see how many of y'all are here. About 4,250 of y'all. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from John D, who says, Deep State UA's map shows the Russian 234th Airborne Assault Regiment just north of Holikov near Crimea. Is this the same group who is responsible for the Bucha war crimes per NYT investigation? And thanks.
I'm not exactly sure if they are, because from what we know, I remember that I was told that a lot of the people who committed the slaughters in the Bucha Hostomel European area were actually killed in the Kharkiv area of the battles that occurred just north of the city. So I think that they, at this point, all of the people who were originally in Bucha Hostomel and European have been killed, and that unit is filled with people who weren't probably even there. So once again, I may be incorrect on that, so take that with a grain of salt, but that's the story I remember hearing back during the Battle of Kharkiv. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, at least the best we can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one we have is from Avari Mandubratis, who puts in a $20 donation and says, how likely is it that the U.S. is secretly training Ukrainians in the U.S. on U.S. equipment? Also, I saw a video a week ago showing the loading of many Abrams tanks on ships bound for Poland for an exercise. Is that foreshadowing?
And Avari, you're not supposed to say that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's probably foreshadowing. We're probably sending it over there because everyone noticed that the Bradleys were moving through Germany a while ago, and we're like, huh, that's a lot of Bradleys. And now they're on their way into Ukraine right now, so those Bradleys ended up being slated for Ukraine. So it's definitely the case that it could be that the Abrams are being sent to Poland right now to eventually be sent to Ukraine. Also, to address the first part, the idea of the United States secretly training Ukrainian soldiers at military bases. 1 second, sorry, the coffee wore off. But,
Goodness.
But to get to the question again, the idea of them secretly training people at U.S. bases is not that far off. It's not at all. I think they probably are right now. It's just that you don't hear about it much, because we always hear about U.S. equipment being sent over, and then somehow people were trained on them in the U.S., like the M777s. We sent over a load of those things, and we're still sending over some here and there. And for some reason, all of the artillery pieces we sent over had crews ready to take them on that had been trained in the U.S. at some point, and we never even heard about them. So, yes, I do think that we are still training Ukrainian soldiers here in the United States very quietly and very low-key, and they are being sent back to Ukraine and doing a fairly good job. You can also see that that's a historical trend with most countries. For example, the North Koreans got training from both the Soviet Union and the Chinese during the Korean War, and in Vietnam, a lot of, I guess you could say, the militants there, the North Vietnamese got a lot of training and equipment from both the Chinese and the Soviet Union then as well, because they wanted to support a communist neighbor to the south, because, you know, it's better to have a communist country down there than a democratic republic or a democracy or some kind of a dictatorship or something similar, because that usually is Western aligned. Also, one other thing, as a U.S. example of this, during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan from 1979 to 1989, we would train a group of people called the Mujahideen in all of their little strategies and tactics, and then they went over there and they started to do fairly well, and then they did so well that they became a problem for us, and then we had to go over there and take care of that problem. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well with a lot of examples to back it up, because nobody really heard back in the 70s and 80s that we were training Mujahideen fighters in the United States, but we were. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and also being an old guard, because Safari has been around since the dawn of time.
Very long time indeed. And
Yes,
thank you for that
indeed,
support
yes, yes.
also. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Borbula, who says, thank you for all you and your brother put into the channel, and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much, Barbula, for the support. I put in a lot of effort into this channel. I put in loads. And I try and make sure that every night is as good as it can be, and I hope that tonight's met that standard. So last night, I'll be honest with you all, I felt like I didn't really meet the standard all too well, and I don't care if people say I did or didn't. I have my own qualifications that didn't meet the mark, because I got a decent amount of stuff wrong, and people were having to correct me on about 7 different things that night, and that was just a bad night all around. But beyond that, and beyond me being critical of the failings that we sometimes have on here, tonight I feel has been a pretty good night, like the song goes. It's not been that bad at all. And so thank you so much once again for the support and enjoying the effort we put into this channel. And with that, we are on to the next one, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from SG, who says, have you heard of the Miracle Man of Montreal, Andre Bessette? People came together and built this huge shrine in 1904, my hometown, because of this man. Go check the St. Joseph Oratory.
The St. Joseph Oratory. St. Joseph Oratory. This is the Oratory of Mount Royal? Is this it? Let's see. It is in Montreal. This has got to be it. So let's take a look at it. Very nice building. It kind of looks like the Sistine Chapel a little bit. Like with a Baroque style dome and everything. Dang, pretty nice on the bespoke. I love the organ. The organ is really nice. It looks kind of modern on the inside, like it may have been remodeled. Also some construction work going on out there. And it looks like that's a statue of Jesus Christ. I guess it's Christ the Redeemer in this kind of deal, kind of like it is in Rio de Janeiro, the giant Christ the Redeemer on top of the mountain. But man, I got to tell you this. I think, is this Catholic?
I would guess so.
If it's Catholic, I gotta say, the Catholics here in this oratory got down the lighting well. I mean, like, the lighting is pretty good. But man, look at this. This is actually pretty impressive. I wonder how much this costs to build. And they got stained glass windows and everything. I mean, like, this thing had a lot of effort put into it. That's for certain, to say the least. But man, what a building. I always marvel at the architecture of these buildings. And while it's I gotta say this, though. Modern buildings this size are not that difficult to make, especially compared to older buildings of this size. Like, for example, I'll go to one just real quick as a rabbit hole on architecture. My favorite cathedral in the entire world. I'm a huge fan of cathedrals because of the architectural, I guess I could say, ingenuity that had to be involved in constructing them. My favorite one in the world is York Minster because it's, of course, the biggest one in Northern Europe. And also, it has a lot of very nice looking features to it, I guess you could say. It's symmetrical throughout. That's actually kind of rare for cathedrals at the time. And not only that, it's just absolutely impressive the amount of engineering that went into making this thing actually stand. In case if y'all don't know, back in the day, making thin walls that were incredibly large like they are in these cathedrals was very difficult, and so you had to find a way to support these walls so that way the weight of the vaults that are in the ceiling, and I'll see if I can show y'all a picture of these vaults, do not push the wall out. So, let me see. Here we go. So here is one of the main, I guess you could say corridors, or the nave, I believe is what it's called, of the cathedral. And you can see up there the vaulting. And that vaulting is made of stone and is incredibly heavy. And these thin walls, standing at a perfect vertical angle, are now able to support the weight entirely on their own. And so, without any kind of support, they just get pushed outwards and the whole thing falls apart. So you have to find some way to support these walls to keep this whole entire thing held together. And the way you do that is with these things called flying buttresses. He said butt. But anyways, let me show you one of these. You can see them right there. There are these little columns that stand up outside the building, and you'll see that they have these things called flying buttresses that are attached to the buttress, and they literally just push onto the walls of the building and keep them upright, which keeps the entire cathedral intact. It's really a marvel of engineering to think that anyone ever came up with something like this to hold these walls together and to provide the kind of lighting that's in these cathedrals, because sure, they could have made the walls solid and thick, but then you wouldn't have all of this nice lighting inside of the cathedral. It wouldn't be filled with light like it is in the normal day, like this right here. there is no lights whatsoever in this building, except for down here.
I was about to say.
Yeah, on this little exhibit down here, there is no natural light. Well, artificial light. Yeah, artificial light and light bulbs in this building. All of the light you see and how these walls are lit is with nothing but the sun, and it's because of how they built the cathedral, the windows, and everything to make sure that there would be ambient lighting at a consistent rate throughout the entire building as long as it was daylight. That is an incredible engineering feat on its own, and usually cathedrals get slept on a lot in terms of how creative and ingenuitive engineers at the time had to be to make these things. To make something with these kinds of specifications in the Middle Ages at this size was unbelievable and took a massive amount of cost, a massive amount of engineering, and a massive amount of time. These cathedrals usually took about 70 years to build, and I believe this one in particular was built over the course of 120 years from start to finish in the way it looks now. They're really impressive, I have to say. Not much more impressive in my opinion due to the amount of effort that had to be put into them than a modern building like the Oratory in Montreal, but still, that does not mean to understate the architectural beauty of that building. It has a very Baroque design to it. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support and allowing me to go on a small tirade or a rabbit hole about why cathedrals are cool just on the engineering aspect of them. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Nick Riva, who does not leave a comment. But Nick, thank you very much for the support. We appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you for the support, Nick. You didn't throw in a comment. But I gotta thank you so much once again for helping this channel keep running. Because if it wasn't for people like you, it wouldn't be possible for this thing to keep going each and every day. We all support us and help this thing to keep going. Help us to get pizza, coffee, and everything else. And I gotta thank y'all so much for that. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Oats Air, who says, "Sheesh, these new enforcers are bussin', no cap, respectfully." Take a question from the chat. Slava LSA and Slava Ukraine.
Sheesh! And thank you, Osir, on God, for helping this channel to keep on running. No cap, bussin'. You are the one, man, who's been around forever. On God, man. Not lying. No cap. And so I gotta thank you so much once again for being around for so long, man. He's been around. Osir has been around for at least 300 days, Matthew.
He has. He's been here the entire time I've been here, plus more.
Matthew, you're supposed to actually throw in like the stupid little catchphrase things like "shit on God," you know, and I was supposed to say, "Oh, on God, cap." You know,
no cap.
No cap. I mean, like cap means you're lying. No cap means you're not lying. But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support, Ozer. And let's get to that live chat. But before we do, Matthew, I gotta just do this one more time. And so with that, let's get to the live chat.
All right, so moving on to the live chat, we have a question from Frequency Harmonic, who says, "Is there any video evidence anywhere of those helicopters that blindly fire off those rockets ever hitting their targets? It seems like a huge waste of rockets." I thought the same thing, honestly.
There is, but they're very rare. We've gotten a few videos of the Russian MLRSs, well, not the MLRSs, the rockets operating as MLRSs, and how accurate their spread is, and it's fairly wide. It looks like it's about 500 meters wide, and so if you fire off 24 rockets, the chances of it hitting the target is very low, especially with a 500 meter spread. So they're not that accurate. The best thing you could do is use these things to mass saturate an area, and that's always why it's a very questionable strategy if you're not using it in rural areas where there are no people. Because if you use a strategy like that on an urban area, you're hitting everything. You're hitting citizens, you're hitting soldiers, you're hitting nothing as well. So I hope that does answer the question the best we can, but to be honest with you, we've only seen about 7 videos showing how accurate those rockets really are when they land. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Also, Marcus, I think you are in the queue. It's just that it takes time to get to everyone. So with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, Oatsair said, "Enforcer only since day 56.
Only what? I feel like you've been here for a long time, man. Like well, that is a long time when you think about it. Because it's day 317, he's been here like 270 days. I probably did that math wrong, but anyways,
that's probably wrong.
I gotta thank you for being around at least that long. I mean, like, hell, you were here in the first 2 months of the war. So with that, thank you so much once again, Oatsair, for being here tonight. And also, I think that's almost the time of the Great Schism, I believe. It's just a little bit before. It's after the times of Matt. So you're a
Day of
soldat.
Matt.
The day of Matt, not the times of Matt. That sounded like almost like something from the Bible, Matthew, like the trials of Job or something like that. Anyways, let me see. Since day 56, so the marking of an old guard is to be here on day 4. If you're after day 4, you're not an old guard. So sadly, you don't qualify to be an old guard. I don't know why I had to think about that because day 56 is well away from day 4. So you're actually a soldat, but I think since you've been so around so long and you've been so active, I think you should be an honorary old guard member. And so I dubbed the Otair colonel of what the hell will Otair be the colonel of? We'll say
Colonel of KFC.
Nah. That was. I think we already gave, we already gave that one out to someone else. You will be.
I'll be the colonel of KFC. I want that chicken.
Well, let's see. Matthew is the Lord Arbiter of the server of the Discord server, and also, let's see, the colonel of KFC. I mean, like, hell, that's a pretty good title. And Otair ought to be. I'm trying to think of something. Oh, what's something you were related to Otair, like geographically? Let's see, I'm waiting. Come on, Otair, come on. Work with me here. Work with me. Dub the 78 Money Pit said dub the LOL. I know. It's kind of cheesy. That's the whole point. It's supposed to be like really funny and really cheesy in a way. Come on.
And also I am said AM after Matt and BM before Matt. I like this. We should adopt it.
That's actually pretty funny. Maybe we will adopt that. But then again, that doesn't really account for day 4 or the Great Schism.
That'd be AM.
That's it, yeah. That's actually pretty funny.
34 AM.
But let's see here. I'm waiting for Otair. Where are you? Is there anything related to you that I can dub you of? Finland and
Washington State.
So I dubbed the colonel of the. I'm trying to think of something related to Finland. What's that little cartoon character from Finland? Cartoon character from Finland. I dubbed the colonel of the Moomins, the Moomin Light Brigade. That's it. You will be colonel of the Moomin Light Brigade, and you have been dubbed as so. And so guide our Moomins well. And so with that, thank you so much once again, Otair, for letting me dub you. You are now colonel of the Moomin Light Brigade. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat once more from Avari Mandibratis, who says, regarding the faux folk chant, for the real thing, look on YouTube for Heilung Lifa Live Official, skip to the middle and play 4 seconds and maybe mute after. Heilung is an Iron Age music group, and I went to a concert.
And I thank you so much for the support, Avari, and I would check that out. But the problem is that usually music groups are very, very hostile about people playing any of their song at all, even a few seconds of it. So sadly, I probably won't be able to play that on stream just due to the fact that we actually got copyrighted for something 2 days ago again, because we only played 4 seconds of it. So I would love to. I'll check it out off stream, but I can't do it on stream due to the risk. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the reason why we can't play it on stream fairly well, but I will make sure to check it out off stream and take a listen to it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment, and we are on to the next one. Also, thank you, Avari, for being here tonight, because you said you were working late at the beginning of the stream, and I hope that you've been able to watch at least a little bit of it, or that you're getting through work incredibly quickly, and we're just burning through your time, so that way work seems a lot shorter. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Marcus Burtonshaw, who says, did you see the ABC interview with Ukraine's spy master, stating that he knows that Putin is terminally ill and to expect more strikes in Russia? Excuse me. Also, Slava LSA, Slava Ukraine, and also hashtag Free the Leopard.
And I say free those leopards too. I think that those poor things are endangered in Germany, and they need to go to Ukraine to roam free. Living in captivity in Germany is not right for them. Leopard 2s require open air and open range chickens to feed on. And those chickens are Russians. But anyways, that's it. And they get blown away. But anyways, I got to thank you so much once again for the support. And also, can you reread the first part of that again to make sure I heard that correctly?
Did you see the ABC interview with Ukraine's spy master stating that he knows Putin is terminally ill?
And yes, oh, actually, no. Let me correct that real quick. No, I didn't, unfortunately. I'll have to go and try and check that out. But there's not a lot of time in the day, sadly. I've started to figure that out after I ran this channel. And I haven't been able to watch it up until this point, but I will try and watch it later on. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Alex Wolf, who says, keep up the great work of the Enforcer and Enforcer Matt and LSA. Shout out to the 502nd, 327th, and 187th of the 101st. I miss you guys. And also, the 82nd, I guess you guys are okay also.
He literally said at the end of that, and the 82nd, you guys are all right. But anyways, thank you so much for the support. And also good to hear you giving a shout out to everyone almost in the 101st. And also, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running and helping the LSA to stand strong. The LSA is building an army from the ground up, from the Lord of the Snow Crabs, who is Walter A. Lakota, to our Colonel of the Moomin Light Brigade, who is Walter A. Lakota. We honestly need a ledger, Matthew, of the titles of LSA members, and just come up with really funny ones, along with serious ones as well. But I think that would just be. I said that was funny a while ago when we gave one to Walter. But I think it would be funny if we eventually started giving everyone like names. Like I actually have a pretty good one for BC Skyman. I think it would be really cool. But anyways, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much once again for helping us keep going. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Richard Philpott, who says, check out Gaudi's Sagrada Familia Cathedral if you got the time.
And I do have the time. Sagrada Familia. This is a interesting cathedral project. They're still building it right now. And I forgot when the, let me pull up the Sagrada Familia and let me see when this actually started. Construction began, I believe, in the 1800s. So let's see here. The year it was consecrated was 2010. They started the groundbreaking on the Sagrada Familia in 1882. So I was correct. It was the late 1800s. 140 years ago. And they're building it, I believe, with, well, that's definitely not traditional means. But they have been building it for 140 years. And it's probably one of the most weird, I guess you could say, unorthodox looking cathedrals that has existed anywhere in the world. It's more so a basilica. But it's really bizarre looking, honestly. Like, I have to say, I'm more so of a fan of the traditional Gothic style of cathedrals than modern ones. It is still incredibly neat and really interesting from an architectural standpoint, how this thing looks and how it's built. It's just that, you know, it's just a little too unorthodox when you're like the inside of this basilica. I don't know. You know, it's like it's neat. I will give it that. It's very neat. It's very unique. But I'm just more of a fan of the traditional Gothic style and also Baroque styles as well, because nobody can say, I don't think anyone can disagree in the world that let me make sure I'm correct on this. It is St. Paul's Basilica. Let me check. It's St. Paul's Basilica. No, crap. I'm sorry, wrong. I'm saying St. Peter's. St. Peter is inside this cathedral. He's buried in there. Who is Peter from the Bible? If y'all didn't know, that's why it's called St. Peter's Basilica. But no one could say that this thing is not impressive. It almost cost the Catholic Church at the time they built this thing their entire fortune. But it is a really impressive building architecturally and due to the amount of detail and the sheer scale of the thing. And so I can say I'm behind Baroque.
It has really good reviews too. It had like 130,000 5-star reviews.
Man, really? Let's read some of them.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Let's read some of the 1-star reviews. I'm sure those are funny. How in the world do we categorize sort? Lowest rating. 1 security checkpoint for at least 1,000 people at 1:30 p.m. on the 7th of August. Very bad organization. It's 40 degrees in the sun with no sunshades for visitors. I witnessed 2 people fainting in a 20-minute period. Go to Stonehenge, pal. You're amateurs. And when you tell me the Italian organizers, they got offended and told me to go away. No wonder they have bad reputation. But it's got 4.8 stars. What the hell are you talking about? Watch out for this extremely rude security officer who split up our group, causing us to miss our paid tour, which luckily we refunded with tickets after one of them accidentally stepped over a single step over an imaginary exit line without any turnstile or clear indication of an exit. Let's see. St. Peter's Basilica is home to the Pope and many cardinals and priests. What is the... Oh, so that's a political thing. I mostly had a good experience. The place is beautiful and well maintained. However, I spent 10 minutes in the queue waiting to ask for information. And when it was my turn, the person looked at me and called the European lady behind me, and she went! Very rude staff, and obviously the lady as well. I would expect more from the Basilica and the Vatican. Xenophobic people should not work in public. I would love to say something good, after all, it's Rome, but the menu is a joke. The service is slow. They put mushrooms and a traditional Greek salad, and added tuna fish to a vegetarian dish without mentioning in the menu. I'll leave a photo of their Greek salad. My bad for not reading the info below the salad name. Ma'am, this is...
They lied. They didn't leave a photo.
This is the St. Peter's Basilica, ma'am. This is not a restaurant. What are you talking about? Vatican does not care about people that are in line waiting to come to St. Peter's Basilica. There is the fantastic natural to the people under the colon, but Vatican is blind. What? Love it, very impressive. The Catholic Church makes more money than Apple and Google per year, and it shows. Overloaded with opulence. Does this guy Vlad Gross V not understand?
Are they Russian?
I think so. Does this, and also he's a local guide, quote unquote. I highly doubt. He's from what? Where the hell is this? Hang on. Is that in Korea? He's in North Korea. Wait a minute, he's in South Korea. Sorry, he's south of Seoul. I was about to be like, what? He's in North Korea. But hello everyone, I'm Bald Bankrupt. Today I'm in North Korea. Anyways, does this guy not understand that this was built in the 1600s? The money they make today did not go into building this thing 400 years ago. What an idiot.
And how's he gonna rate it 1 star for being opulent? He said, "I love it. It's great, very impressive, but I hate it. It's overloaded with opulence." Like a clown.
You know, it's like, isn't that the whole thing? Why it's a tourist attraction is because it's grand and opulent, and people want to see a grand opulent basilica. It's like, isn't that kind of like the point? You know, that's like going to a comedy club and going, "Huh, real funny, you made me laugh. I came here to cry." You know, it's like, what the hell is your problem? Are you stupid? Like. Sometimes I wish you could say that to people. I wish people would just say that in public sometimes. Just make it short and simple. Like, what the hell are you expecting? Like, you come to the ski resort and you start complaining that there's no beach. Are you an idiot? That's what a ski resort is. Anyways, we're going to be moving on. It's always funny to read bad ratings, but that's just stupid. Anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we did address the Sagrada Familia a pretty good bit. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Ben, who puts in a $7 donation and says, "I think the most important part of the RT hamster ad was the windows blown out in the 2023 part. That may have been intended to show the things that could escalate into missiles being fired into Europe."
And I think that may have been kind of like an indication of that. I think you may actually be right on that. I would not doubt that at all, that was the intent behind it. And so with that, thank you for the support and also being observant on that one. I thought it was just people busting out windows and vandalizing a house. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right. And the next one goes to Help One, Help All, who puts a $7 donation and says, "Can you show Ukraine TBIC video?"
We did show the skincare video. He actually commented on one of our videos too, which I thought was pretty cool. He's got a pretty cool channel. But we don't want to show a whole lot of them because then we're kind of just like ripping his channel, and I don't want to rip his channel. I want you to go over there and give him views, which gives his channel traffic and gives him some subscribers instead of showing his stuff on here. So if y'all want to see it, make sure to type in Ukraine_TBIC and go check out his channel because he's been making some pretty funny stuff over there. I checked out a couple of other of his videos and they were also pretty good too. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support. And make sure to show his channel a little bit of love as well.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Technical Fool, who says, "First, also, send question to live chat."
And first? Am I really, technically, Matthew, am I the first one here considering that I start the stream?
I mean, maybe.
I'm gonna have to take
I think Anthony's first.
Give up the crown, Technical Fool. That goes to me. I'm just kidding. I think you were the first one. And so with that,
I think he's the first super chatter, by the way.
Yes, he was. I checked. I was correct. But with that, let us go to the live chat. And thank you once again for being here tonight, Technical Fool.
And the live chat question, sponsored by Technical Fool, goes to Backyards, who says, Matt, and also Enforcer, would EMP affect Belarus? I think they meant to say Belarus and Moscow. Unintentional consequence? Question mark.
The only way an EMP works in real life is through a nuclear blast, and so I think a nuclear blast would affect Belarus and Russia fairly well. So with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. If a nuclear bomb blew up on them, I think it would be serious. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Adam Lee Fox. He says, I don't know if you remember me from early in the war, but I too am a broke college kid. Whatever money I can save up, I'll send. I've been here since day 4, by the way, and Igor.
And also, thank you for the support. And if you are a broke college kid, I highly encourage that you save your funds. It's very important during college to make sure that you can leave as best off as possible. And so don't send everything you can. Save it. Save it, dagnabbit. But I do thank you so much for the support and the thought. It is the thought that counts, and I've got to respect you so much for wanting to help this channel to keep running. But always make sure, everyone, to take care of yourselves first. I never want y'all to put this channel in front of yourselves. If y'all are ever in a little bit of a tight squeeze, know that I'm not going to sit there and be like, how come you're not sending me a super chat? And how come you're not supporting the fundraiser? I will never say that. I will never think that. I thank everyone who sends in support, and I thank everyone also equally as much for watching. And so don't ever feel like you have to do that. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping us to keep this thing running. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And also, I remember almost everyone's face. If you have been here before, well, not everyone's face, I remember everyone's name. And so if you have been here before, I will remember. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat once more from Marcus Burtonshaw, who says, hashtag free the leopards.
And hashtag free the leopards. I think the leopards ought to be free. Like I said earlier, I think that they are an animal that is being subject to great cruelty, or a tank. And so with that, man, if the leopards ever get freed, I'll do like a David Attenborough mini documentary on it.
Why do you want to free a leopard?
You know, the leopard 2s, free the leopards, send them to Ukraine.
That can be dangerous.
The leopards tanks must feed. That's a terrible Attenborough. Anyways, with that, thank you so
back to the constipated Attenborough.
I've eaten Taco Bell tonight, and I am doing terribly well. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support, and free those leopards.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from GNF, who says, I think the Russians are getting more honest as the war continues, admitting what countries they want to invade/hate, and admit to bombing citizens.
And can you reread that one again real quick?
Yes. GNF says, I think the Russians are getting more honest as this war continues, admitting what countries they want to invade/hate, and admit to bombing citizens.
And that is true. They are getting more honest in that way, and they're making a lot more people not like them. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from CA Lags, who says, Putin, colon, that's the grammatical colon, by the way, ceasefire, please. So Christmas, wait a minute, hold on. Let me try to get this right in my head. Ceasefire, please. So Christmas, Shahed Santa, Bringy, surprise, honest.
Well,
I'm not really sure.
I thank you for the support, CA Lags, and I think Putin wants a ceasefire for that exact reason. And so with that,
Bringy surprise. Bringy surprise.
Bring a big surprise. With that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Farbod A, who says, I couldn't believe it myself, but Germany is supplying Ukraine with Marders, Hydra rockets, and believe it or not, the Patriot missile system battery.
And yes, that is correct. They are supplying them with all of those things, which is absolutely stupendous. And so, with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. We actually covered most of that earlier in the stream, except for the Patriot. And thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Diffuse56, who puts in a $5 donation himself and says, I got to go at midnight. I missed you a while I was in the hospital, and it's glad to be back. Give my question to the chat, and thank you both for all that you do.
Hey! And of course, we've been wishing you well. And so I hope that you're having a fun time back. I gotta thank you so much for the support. And I hate that you had to leave at midnight, which is literally right when we got to your question. But I do welcome you back, and I hope you've had a fun time tonight. Of course, we've been keeping up to date on your situation the best we could, or at least keeping you in mind. And it's good to know that you're back. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Welcome back, and I hope that you stay here again. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
Well, also, he wanted to see a live chat question, and it goes to Christian, who says, is there any word on sending depleted uranium rounds?
No, I haven't heard of any word on that. So unfortunately, I would have to say no, is the simple answer. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
What if they made, instead of a depleted uranium round, like a live uranium round? Like send up the live stuff?
Oh, man. The tanks that it hits just start glowing. They just start glowing green and dematerialize. You know, I always wonder why they make them out of depleted uranium. You know, I feel like it wouldn't be that much of a problem to just have radioactive uranium shells inside of a tank near a live crew, handling it with their bare hands and loading it inside of the breech of an M1 Abrams gun and just firing it. I feel like that really wouldn't be a problem. Yet they always make it out to sound like one, gee, thanks, radiological scientists, like they know everything. But anyways, I'm just kidding. That's not safe. And so with that, we are on to the next one. You know, the reason why I always do that at the end of everything, Matthew, like I'll be joking and then I'll have to go, I'm kidding, you know, it's a joke. Because you'll see people in the live chat actually take that seriously sometimes. They'll be like, oh, you idiot, it's radioactive, it's dangerous, you know, and like they didn't even know that it was a joke. But we're on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to Todd. And Todd, hopefully I'm not about to butcher your last name. Fabiker? Is it? Do you think, Enforcer?
That's probably a lot closer than what I was about to say. I was about to say Fabacher, but I'm sure it's not that.
I doubt it's that.
No,
Fabiker, maybe, I think. But anyways, Todd, thank you very much for the support, and we do appreciate it very much. And if we butchered your last name, we are very sorry. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, one thing I do say is I would like to make an official apology on the Enforcer channel on behalf of both the Enforcer and Enforcer Matt for butchering your last name. We usually do not commit any kinds of acts against the Geneva Convention, but on this night we had to partake in a little bit of butchery on your last name, and we do forgive for that sincerely. Moving on from that...
No, wait, go back. Hey guys, I really hated to have to make this video, but this is the apology video.
No, wait a minute, hang on, Matthew, hang on. I don't know if you can hear me sit down in the chair, but 1 second. Guys, I made a terrible mistake. Puts hands on face. Y'all, I've been thinking about this channel and everything that's been going on. I just feel like I'm overworked. I'm making so many mistakes, and I'm so sorry. But I have a lot of reasons why. At first, my cat died. Second, I was born this way. And third, it's just getting to me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. By the way, we got a new merch line running. Make sure to check that out at enforcerstore.com. But I'm so sad. But anyways, we're on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Avari Mandabratis yet again, who says, back at my office desk before I get back to work, maybe show off Kilchurn Castle in Ayrshire, Scotland. And can you imitate Werner Herzog in a voiceover?
Werner? I've never even heard of Werner Herzog. So, unfortunately, I don't think I can due to the fact that I haven't heard them. But maybe I'll try and listen to a clip of them and see if I can do it in the future. Let me just see if I can pull up Werner Herzog. Maybe we can just do it right here and try. Also, just in
the pronunciation of it's getting worse each time you say it.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of
Werner Herzog.
Herzog? That's his name? Oh.
No, it's Herzog.
Oh, Herzog. I say Herzog.
Our next guest.
Oh, that's a talk. Oh God, we don't even want to play the audio of that. Oh God, it's another talk show. This one's with Letterman. Where the hell can we just find this guy talking? Huh? Emma! Let's see here.
You know, we know Letterman.
Yeah, we do. We do know Letterman.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
the
guy
guy
who
delivers
always-
the mail every day.
Yeah, I was about to say, that guy.
The enormity of their flat brain.
Wow, okay.
What the hell is he talking about?
The enormity of their flat brain.
The enormity of their stupidity is just overwhelming.
What the hell is he talking? Is he talking about the Russians here? This is it's the enormity of their stupidity. It's the enormity of their flat brains.
You have to do yourself a favor. When you're out in the countryside and you see chicken, try to look a chicken in the eye with great intensity. And the intensity...
He's talking about chickens. Interesting. But I like how the first part could really apply to anyone or anything anywhere. You could use that clip on anything. But let's check out the castle real quick. I don't think I'll be able to do Kim tonight. We have to look at the chickens. But see, it's not that good. I'll have to work on it. But nice castle. I have to say it does seem that it will need some renovation work to be lived in again, but it is pretty cool looking. Also, I love the high voltage power line just shrieking across the hillside behind it. The castle rebuilt many times to serve the changing needs of the Campbells of Glenorchy. And we can see a illustration of what the castle used to look like, and now we can see what it looks like now. This is most likely going on Zoopla for about 1.5 million, or about the price of an LA apartment. But still, it is a pretty cool looking castle, and I gotta say, I always love how the Scots always position these castles mostly near locks or tall hills, because it's just so neat to see. It's a very picturesque sight to build a castle at. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Vari. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one, while we talk about the stupid chickens.
And also, Todd Fabiker also had a question, but for some reason it didn't attach to the super chat. So his question is, what do you think about Iran attacking Azerbaijan because of a weak Russia, wanting to stop Turkey and Azerbaijan expansion and support Armenia? This really seems to become a real war.
I haven't really heard much about Azerbaijan and Iran doing anything against each other, so unfortunately I would be ignorant on that subject and wouldn't really be able to talk about it in depth all too well, sadly. But I do thank you once again, Todd, for the support, and hopefully we didn't butcher your last name again. If we did, I'm sorry, because some people, we actually had someone send in a super chat before, and they got so miffed that we screwed up their last name, that they went like berserk in the live chat.
I think they left too,
Yeah,
or either I had to get rid of them, one or the other.
Well, you actually ended up getting rid of them because they just wouldn't drop it. We were like, hey, we're sorry, like we didn't know how it was pronounced.
Yeah, that's right. They started cussing us and going wild. They
Yeah.
said they hated the LSA. They went berserk.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a sincere mistake. So whenever, I got to be honest with y'all, it's always just one person that always ruins it. But at this point, like, I understand now why companies always get more and more reclusive and more hashed out and everything, because you run into someone who just takes something the totally wrong way, and you're like, oh crap, wow, that went terribly. Like someone going ballistic over getting their last name wrong. Like if y'all actually heard our last name or saw it on paper, y'all will probably mispronounce it. I wouldn't really blame y'all. I don't really get that miffed about it, but there are people out there who get miffed over things like that, and so we're like actually like on edge whenever a weird last name comes through, because we're like, is this person going to go ballistic if we mispronounce it on accident? So hopefully we didn't mispronounce yours. Hopefully it's no big deal if we did. And also I hate that I can't really answer that question because I'm not really apprised on the situation going down there all too well. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from the Weasel, who says, check out the AMX-10 France are sending. It's a great little tank that uses different ammo.
And yes, we have checked out the AMX-10 RC, and I actually got Matthew. I told him that this thing was the RC standing for remote control, and he believed me. That gets him back for all the times he lied to me. But anyways, it is a pretty cool vehicle. It's got a 105mm gun. And all in all, I'm a big fan of this thing, and I think it will fill a very neat role in the war in Ukraine, and hopefully we'll see it in action very soon. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, I got to say, I switched over from the, what are they called, Ricolas, over to these things called Ludens. And the Ludens don't really work that well, at least for me, for some reason. It's just like, it tastes like a piece of candy, but it really doesn't work. So I'm still like kind of holding back coughs over here tonight because of that. But
Ricola is the OG because it actually also makes you feel like your entire throat got renovated or refurbished or something by using one. I mean, like, I like Ricolas.
I don't think that was a Ricola that you got then.
Well, I mean, like, hell, those
You got
things
something
are,
else.
Man, those things are spicy. I'll tell you that. Anyways, with that, also some people are gonna go, spice? You haven't tasted spice. Believe me, I have. Believe me. But with that, we are on. Trust me, bro. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to Dupper Bob and also Marc-Andre Brunette, who each put in a $2 super chat, but without comments. And thank you both once again for that very consistent support, as we say every single night. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Chris Webb, who says, Slava Ukraine.
And of course, Chris, Slava Ukraini. Vічне славі всім, Ukraine from Ukraine, Slava Ukraini. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And we are on to the next one.
And also 78 Money Pit. I have the cherry ones. That's the ones I got right next to me. Wild cherry. Very good tasting. It's almost like candy, but not very good for actually like solving the problem, at least for me. But up next, we have a $2 super chat from GNF, who says, will Russia losses get to winter war levels?
Maybe. I mean, like, especially with how they're taking on casualties now, it could by midsummer. So, yes, I do think it can. That sounded so grammatically incorrect. I think it can. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Mr. Diggs, who puts in a $2 donation and says, Our Lady of Victoria Basilica National Shrine.
Our Lady of Victoria?
Yes. Victory. Oh, wait a minute. Out Lady of Victory Basilica National Shrine.
Let's see here. I think we found it. Where is this? This is in Buffalo, New York. There are no buffalo anywhere near Buffalo, New York. Very misleading name. I think this town needs a 1-star review for that fact alone. I wonder if the town has reviews. We're going to look at that in a second, but pretty nice on the outside. But the inside, I can tell you, is well over the top. That is, wow, that is opulent right there. I got to tell you, man, I'm a sucker. Nice. I'm a sucker for details, and this building is filled with nothing but details. Also love the frescoes on the wall. They're beautiful. I mean, this is one hell of a building right here. I mean, like, hell, honestly, I would say, in my opinion, this thing is rivaling St. Peter's Basilica in Rome in terms of how intricate and how nice it is. It's not as big, though. I'll tell you that. But, man, what a building. Also, I love stained glass. I think stained glass is beautiful. Not like small scale stained glass. It's got to be on a giant window, like a rose window or a cathedral window. But man,
not good for the bill, I can tell you that.
Oh no, it's not. This takes a lot of money to get. But man, look at that. Do you know why stained glass windows were ever a thing, Matthew?
Because they wanted their glass nice and stained.
Back in the day, during the Middle Ages, it was impossible to make a large, seamless sheet of glass like we have now. And so they would make these smaller pieces of glass and they would put them together in a frame of lead. You know, and this little frame of lead would be fitted to each piece. So then they decided, well, if we're already going to have to make the frame, and we can only make the pieces of glass so big, we may as well make the glass where it is in a pattern in different colors, where it actually tells a scene in each window, and make it art of its own, since we already have to fractionalize the size of the window to make it a certain size. So that's how stained windows came to be. It wasn't until about the 1700s, around the 1750s and 40s, that making larger sheets of glass became possible. And you start to see that pop up more and more often. Really, honestly, I'll go back and say the 1670s and the 1660s would be about the first time that you would see actual clear, larger pieces of glass. But that's even why, if you look at a building like Mount Vernon, I'll show you right here. When I say a seamless sheet of glass, it's not at all like I'm talking about in the modern day. It was squares that were not too big, because you can even see that here, they had to make the panes somewhat smaller, because while they could make them clear, and they could also make them in squares now that were much larger than the stained glass Middle Ages period, they still couldn't make them that big, that large. So they still remain somewhat small, and that's why windows used to look like that.
Is this Orange Man's place?
No,
Why is he over there in front of it?
because this is where George Washington's from.
Oh, well, he's trying to take it over, I guess.
Well, anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you for pointing this out. And also, before we go on to the next one, let me check and see if the city of Buffalo's got reviews. They don't allow reviews on cities. Kind of sad. Wait a minute, is this where the Frank Lloyd Wright? It is! Wait, this isn't the house, though. This is another one.
It's just a house.
Yeah, this is not the Falling Water house I was thinking of.
I actually like this architecture, but the more I look at it, I sort of like lose the sense of what it was really about.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you see it from here, it's like, it's not that grand. In Falling Water, I feel like Falling Water is kind of overrated a little bit. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and let's see real quick. What is your favorite cough drop? Very random poll. Halls is the winner. Ricola is second. Luden's is third, and other is 21%. Very interesting. Halls is a little too strong for me, a little too spicy, but interesting. What about you, Enforcer?
I would say I don't really use cough drops a lot, but I like Ricola. I'm a big Ricola fan if I ever have to use one. And so with that, I hope I addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Dubsy Dabster, who puts in a 2, as well as John Ramondi, who puts in a 1. Thank you both very much for that support, and we do appreciate it very much. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Havlin Tuft, who says Igor was day 302 at hour and 48 minute.
And thank you so much for the support, and also letting us know that. We did check that out earlier, and we actually got a good laugh out of it again. That guy is just a character, and pretty silly. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, Miss 77, that Hall citrus is sounding very juicy. I might have to try some of that. But anyways, up next we have a $1 super chat from Fuzz the Cat. He says, why do the muzzles have side holes at the end, please?
The muzzles have side holes because they do. I've never really figured out why muzzle brakes are shaped like that, so let's pull that up. Why are muzzle brakes a thing? In short, they help to dampen recoil. That makes a lot more sense now that they say it that way, because all of the recoil is not being projected backwards, it's being projected a little bit to the sides as well. Silly me, why the hell wouldn't I know something that simple? You know? I don't know why, but I knew what a barrel evacuator was for. You know what that is, Matthew?
It evacuates the barrel of all the gases?
Yes, and it's also that little weird thing. 1 second. Let me see if it'll load. It's also that weird thing right here on the Abrams gun. You know, that bulge on the actual barrel. That's a barrel evacuator. It uses air pressure to get all of the smoke out of the barrel. It's really neat, actually. It's a very simple system.
It appears so.
Yes, indeed, to say the least. And so with that...
What are those bulges on tank gun barrels? That's a pretty straightforward title.
And so with that, we are on to the next one. Now, I hope that answers the question fairly well with a simple Google search.
All right. So we are now moving into our live chat questions because we've rounded out our super chats. So up first, we have the Morse code, which was only deciphered tonight by Mark Hodges, I do believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody out there. Mark Hodges says, Enforcer Matt, tonight's Morse reads, Bradley's, question mark, more like Good Time Charlie is what the thing should be called. Slava Ukraine and Slava LSA.
And Slava Ukraine. And you also got that correct. I think that we ought to rename the Bradley the Good Time Charlie, because the Ukrainians are going to be having a good time in that thing, and they're going to be a bunch of Good Time Charlies driving that thing around. And so with that, thank you so much once again, Mark Hodges, for always deciphering the Morse code, always doing it every single night without fail, ever, ever, ever. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have another super chat, this time from Rocco, World Domination, who puts in a $7 donation and says, I visited the Cologne Cathedral last year, and it was amazing, and I share your interest in cathedrals.
And thank you so much for the support, Rocco World Domination. And also, cathedrals are just really neat to me on a architectural standpoint. You know, because here's something that's always funny to me. People sometimes take cathedrals and they just hate them. because, you know, they don't like religion or something, and they don't like, you know, they don't like religion, therefore the cathedral is like a physical symbol that they can hate related to religion. I don't get into any of that stuff anyways. I'm a Christian, you know, but that's getting into a whole other thing. Not a Catholic. But still appreciate cathedrals because the architectural beauty of one is one that you just can't go, it doesn't exist. I mean, like, look at that, and look at all the detail and intricacy that was put into this thing. Like, you can't sit there and say that it's ugly or, you know, it's stupid. At least I can't. You've got to look at it for what it is. It is a real piece of architectural beauty. And I find that this one is also really pretty too. In fact, you may notice something very interesting about the Cologne Cathedral, or the Cologne Cathedral. Until recently, it didn't have stained glass windows. It had normal windows. It had clear, see-through windows that did not have any coloring to them whatsoever. And you can even see them, I think, still. I think that may be some of them. Now, Matthew, you're probably wondering, what the hell happened? Why does it have only clear windows?
What the hell happened?
And that's a great question, actually. And you're not
caught him off guard when I actually asked the question.
Yeah, I was like, wow, he actually did it. He didn't have to like, oh, what? But the reason why it has clear windows is because they were taken away during the Second World War because bombs were dropping around it, and also some dropped near the church and actually destroyed some of the stained glass windows. And so after Germany was divided up into occupation sectors, we put in stained glass windows to stop rain from, well, not stained glass, we put in clear windows to stop the rain from getting inside, and I believe most of those windows were not replaced until about the 2010s. So for the most of Cologne Cathedral's history through the 20th and 21st centuries, it has had clear windows that were installed post-World War II. Oh, so pretty cool, actually. It's kind of like a bit of a holdover from the Second World War. And I'm trying to find a good example of a picture of that, but it seems as though no one's really taking a picture of the windows, probably because they're so uneventful. You can see some stained glass windows there. They put those back in. And also the ones that they put in, most of them, I believe, are originals. But I may be wrong. So let's see. Also, Matthew, what the hell happened to Paul Nielsen? Paul Nielsen just went mental.
He did. He was talking about Slava Russia and junk.
Yeah. He's been here for a pretty good while, and then he just went mental. Sad.
He was holding back the urges the whole time, but he couldn't hold it back any longer.
He was sitting there like that kid in that meme, you know, where all of his veins are popping out of his head by that girl. He was like that the whole time watching this stream. But anyways, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and I do think that the Cologne Cathedral is incredibly neat due to its architectural qualities as well. It's really nice. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And up next, we have a question from Epic Canadian Man, who says, has Putin finally come to his senses due to the ceasefire?
No. It's being used as a ploy for something else, most likely. And so with that, I hope we answered that question fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jonathan, who says, are they going to send the Bradley with Iron Fist active protection system?
I don't think they're going to have the active protection system. They may. I may be wrong about that. But I do know that they are sending the M3 Bradleys and the M2 Bradleys as well. I think they're sending a mix of both. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Rodent of Anger, who says, what percentage of Belarusia has indoor plumbing as compared to Russia, paved roads, etc.? Question mark.
Before I answer that question, I finally got to say it, because I don't think we've ever answered questions a lot from you, Rodent of Anger. A very merry unbirthday to you as well. He's going to go wild for that. He's going, oh, he said it! Like, he's actually seen it! And now with that out of the way, reread the question again.
What percentage of Belarusia has indoor plumbing as compared to Russia, paved roads, etc.?
Let's see. Portion of what country to Russia?
Wait, what?
What country is Russia being compared to?
Belarusia?
Indoor plumbing. So 78% of Russia has indoor plumbing. So about 22% of their country does not have indoor plumbing. Compared to Belarus, what? Well, actually, let's just go back and fill in Russia here. Belarus. So it appears that 95% of the Belarusian population has access to plumbing. Let's see. Coverage with improved drinking water sources, 2002. The United States, on up there. Africa, not so much. But then again, most of these countries are in the Sahara, so I don't even know how they're supposed to cope with it. Sanitation coverage in 2002. Not good for China. Not good for India or Vietnam or really anyone in Asia at all. Except for Japan. They're doing really good. Let's see. That doesn't really give us the answers we're looking for, does it? No, it doesn't. One Russian in 4 lacks an indoor toilet. One of many. The rise of indoor plumbing in the United Kingdom. The houses that Lukashenko built. Well, it looks like about 22% of them don't have a toilet. And it looks like the Belarusians may all have plumbing and toilets. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ashley Fitzsimmons. Excuse me.
Bless you, son.
Goodness.
Bless you. Jeez.
Can you confirm if the rumors are true, if Russian troops are amassing in Gomel, Belarus?
I cannot really confirm if those are true or not because we haven't been getting any news about that by and large, and there has been a lot of news about a Belarusian buildup at all. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And Matthew, I gotta say, this sounded like your lungs are getting blown out. Must have been a 9mm. But here that we're on to the next one.
All right, and up to the next one, we have one from Woody Stems, who says, don't the Russians have any anti-tank missiles or rockets?
Yes, they do. We don't see them using them a lot, though, so I'm assuming that they actually have a pretty sizable stockpile of them left if they haven't been blown up yet. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Dinosaur, who says, you think Putin will do another round of mobilization after such losses?
I think he most likely will, and it should be coming up within the next few weeks, I believe. It'll be another partial mobilization again, because that was the whole point of abstaining from doing one before Christmas here in the West. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have one from Bobo Uzala, who says, Enforcer, do we know what the Ukrainians' losses are in Slava Ukraine?
We do not. We don't really get public numbers on that, and I think the last time we heard, it was around, I think 10,000, but that was a long time ago. It's probably up towards around 20 or 30 right now, somewhere in there. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and Slava Ukraine. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Leonce Pierre, who says, have you heard the stories of the Bradley taking the turrets off of T-72 with their 20mm?
No. Is there such a story? I'm asking for an answer, Matthew. I'm just kidding. I'll pull it up. Let's see. Bradley destroying T-72. Let's see. Buddy to Ames. Let's see. Can I...
Quora.
What?
I would go to Quora.
Quora. Just not with its main gun. No.
What is this guy's qualifications to be answering this question, by the way?
I don't know.
He says author has 176 answers and 1 million answer views. He sounds qualified to me.
Yep, this man's qualified. Anything's trustworthy on the internet. That's what they say. Let's see here.
Wow, Amazon unclaimed packages. That was a lot.
Man, that was a lot of them.
I'll claim some.
25mm gun. Let's see here. As a veteran cavalry scout, I was assigned to a Bradley fighting vehicle. I can tell you from experience that the 25mm gun can destroy T-72 with or without depleted uranium rounds. There's your answer. It can. I didn't know about that, but it can. I wouldn't count on that, though, because I feel that a 25mm gun it's not going to get that great of pen, even if it is using an APFSDS shell. So I would say, you know, I wouldn't really count on it, but it could probably pen. Considering that this guy actually had experience with it, I'm sure it can, but I wouldn't say 100% of the time, without a doubt, quote me on it, this thing is going to punch through everything. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for a good question. And also, wait a minute, before we're on to the next one, it's actually the last one of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Carmen V, who says, did you guys hear that civilian hospitals in Russia are being made available to military personnel now? They must be expecting a lot of casualties.
I didn't, and that is actually pretty interesting here, and maybe showing that they are expecting some casualties, to say the least. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And it looks like we have one more from Scott Kemp, and this will be the final one of the night. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and this one from Scott Kemp is a $10 super chat and says, was the U.S. war effort during World War II a full mobilization?
Was the U.S.? Yes, it was. It was a full mobilization. We drafted the entire population. It wasn't to reservists. It wasn't to a small part of reservists. We said, everyone that can be called up, we're calling them up. Well, of course, we ended up not calling everyone up. That doesn't actually ever happen, even if you do a full mobilization. But yes, we completely mobilized during the Second World War, and we also completely mobilized during the First World War as well. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well, Scott Kim. And we can also Google that just to make sure. Did the U.S. fully mobilize in the Second World War? I would, and also to back this up a little bit more before we get the actual answer, considering that we converted a lot of the civilian consumer economy and industry into war economy and war industry, that is usually the best indicator of a full mobilization. So let's see. The United States became fully engaged in, yeah, we know they did, but the warm, sunny weather, okay, hang on. Let's say by the time the army mobilization was expensive. The federal government spent $290 billion on the war effort to mobilize and fight. To finance the war, several avenues were used. The United States became home front during World War II, supported the war effort in many ways. U.S. mobilization effort. So it seems as though everyone is kind of unanimous that it was full mobilization. It's just that no one really comes out and says it. You know, like a full mobilization. They just say it's mobilization. Because back in the day, when you mobilized, you mobilized. It was a full mobilization. There was no such thing as a halfway mobilization, like a halfway house. It was either you're mobilized or you're not. And we can see that the U.S. mobilized in. So the answer is yes. And so with that, I hope that answered the question fairly well. And it is now time for us to round out tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been a wonderful night covering the news with all of y'all. I hope you all have enjoyed the news and our coverage of it. And if y'all did, make sure to subscribe because this stream runs every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, except for Mondays. Thank you all so much once again for watching. And I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, stay safe, take care, and I'll see y'all then. Yay!
Yes. The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу. нашу свободу і покажем, що ми